Hello and welcome to NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of brilliant racing action in the NXTGEN Legends Cup Season 3 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles. We are here once again. It has been 2 weeks since our brilliant season open at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, and after an incredible round of racing which saw drives taken one of the tightest and shortest circuits on the calendar, we've made our way to one of the longest on the calendar today for round number 2, and it is in the county of Norfolk in the United Kingdom, for it is the Snetterton Racing Circuit. Located near the city of Norwich, but more closely to the village of Snetterton from which it takes its name, this circuit, like many circuits in the United Kingdom, is based on the site of a former Royal Air Force base. Indeed, RAF Snetterton Heath, playing host to American bomber squadrons in the period of 1943 through to 1946, is a circuit which has gradually grown as a result of the disuse of the airfield, all the way from its original opening in 1951, which saw the usage of the majority of the taxiways around the circuit, all the way into the gradual development into a much more formal circuit throughout the 60s and the 70s, and subsequently, upon the acquisition of the circuit by Motorsport Vision or MSV, the creation of what is this wonderful circuit and the second longest circuit in the United Kingdom as of 2011. With its three layouts, the 300, the 200 and the 100, we're technically going to be taking a slight trip back in time, or a bit of a nostalgia trip, as our drives today will taking their way around the 200 layout. A modern layout and used for club level racing, but the closest layout you will see for this circuit in relation to its original layout from 1974. This circuit brings together a combination of 8 corners as interspersed over 2 long straights. It's the entire outer ring of the Snetterton circuit. We're not going to be going infield today, and over 2 miles of distance. Well, the big challenge for all the drivers will be who's going to be able to break away or at least lead the pack, because the thing is, it is going to be Legends meets NXTGEN meets NASCAR tonight, as we are going to be seeing a circuit that's very different from our season opener, with corner complexes very tightly woven together and long straights mean these Legends machines are going to get right on the grills of each other and push each other along into the next corner complex. And afterwards, a brilliant round of racing last week, where it's going to be a very different tone, but we expect plenty more here today. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast from Circuit Side. We are here, of course, via free media platforms to your viewing pleasure as you watch all the racing live this evening. You could be tuning in firstly via one of 2 official NXTGEN Racing media platforms, including on YouTube at youtube.com, search for NXTGEN Racing, and hello to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including none other than Mr. Andy Fox there, and I hope you're doing well, Andy, and looking forward to all the racing today, and we'll talk a little bit more about Andy and the Goldwyn Motorsport team in due course. Or you could be tuning in via Facebook at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Facebook. And last but not least, you can of course be tuning in via the unofficial broadcast available on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. Now, regardless of what media platform you're tuning in on, you're going to be have all your commentary of your racing action brought to you by myself in the commentary booth. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we've got plenty of action in store today. Speaking of our schedule then, we're timed in British Summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1 that being. And as we can see, in just under 17 minutes time, we'll be making our way into our qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration. All the drives out of the circuit from 8 o'clock this evening, all looking to go for pole position. But something tells me that pole position is not going to be worth too much, and it's going to be over the race distance where we'll really see who's going to be on pole and prime in order to take victory, because race number 1 will be a 12 lap race, 15 minutes in duration, but we do it by lap count, and that will be starting at 8:15 this evening, after which we'll take a brief breather before returning at approximately what will be just before 9 o'clock this evening to get our second race of the day underway, another 12 lapper. And then we do have our extended feature race, of course, our 25-minute race, which will be 19 laps, and that will be expected to get underway at 9:45 this evening. Albeit we may run slightly ahead of schedule. We were ahead of schedule last time out, but those times are indicative, as they was all the way through if you don't want to miss a single moment of brilliant racing action. As our drivers get ready to go racing today, well, let's talk a little bit more about the season calendar and what was our last time out and what lies in store for this round. Because as we can see, it was the 13th of May when we got things underway for Season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, and it was the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit that played host. Now we are here in Snetterton for the Snetterton 200 layout, and it is the 27th of May. After today, we're making our way up to Scotland for the Knockhill International Circuit on the 10th of June, and indeed it wouldn't be a Legends Cup if we didn't make our way to the good old Scottish circuit at Knockhill, and then what will be in our second round of June on the 24th of June, where we head all the way to the infamous beating heart of British motorsport, and that will be the Silverstone National Circuit on the 24th, and well, what a circuit that's going to be there for round number 4. Short, straight and simple, with its sweeping corners as well, and indeed the race in action will be similar to Snetterton in a way, but over a much shorter race distance. Then in round number 5, we'll be heading to Cadwell Park. We're making our way all the way up into the northern end of England, and it'll be the very narrow circuit. They'll play host our drives on the 8th of July, and that's going to be pack racing, albeit follow the lead all the way through, but don't count out some brilliant overtaking action at the more motorcycle-focused circuit these days. And then we'll be heading down south to Thruxton on the 15th of July at the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom, self-proclaimed, but it lives up to that title, no doubt about it, as all our drivers will look to romp and rave around there, and then completing our summer holidays triple header. It'll be on the 22nd of July that we make our way to the Donington Park National Circuit, right in the heart of the United Kingdom, and then we'll get to see our drivers make their way through the sweeping curves of Donington Park. In our penultimate round on the 5th of August, it'll be the Alton Park Island Circuit there as we make our way back with the NXTGEN Racing action, and on the 19th of August, it'll be the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, which we make our way back to for the final time of the season. We make 2 visits there, and we bring the curtain down on the 19th of August in round 9 of 9. But that's our calendar then, and well, going into this round, we don't have the points available. The points will be provided as of round number 3's broadcast in a week's time, so just bear with us. Our points man, our points guru, Gavin, well, he's deserved and earned himself a brilliant holiday, so he's on holiday at the moment, but he's going to be back in due course. You'll see him on the grid as well, I do believe, later on this season. That's why we haven't got any points today, because our points steward, well, he's taking a break there, and well, we should give him a big mention of the fact he puts in so much time and effort week in, week out for the NXTGEN, the Legends, and every series that we have here at NextGen to bring you all those points. However, coming into this round, well, if you do want the stories on the championships, we will give you those stories in due course, but first let's take a little bit of a story to the circuit we're at today, because it's the 200 layout of the Snetterton circuit, located in the village of Snetterton in the county of Norfolk in England, the United Kingdom. Thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but also the track map, and this is one of the flattest circuits as they come. It's to be expected, of course, because it is based on an airfield site, and airfields typically are dominated by flat terrain. But regardless of the obviousness of an airfield, one thing that may not be obvious is the fact that this circuit used to be a much longer circuit by comparison, extending all the way northwards of the Bentley Straight, which you see on screen, and that was due to the taxiways of the Snetterton airfield. But over time, it has shrunk down to this circuit now, and we are racing on the outer perimeter of the Snetterton circuit, in the fact that we do have the infield there, which you may be able to note from the greyed out lines, which when you join that together with this outer loop will create the 300 layout, and that infield is the 100. But it's only a 2-mile distance our drivers will be racing over today, and as they roar the way around here, they'll have to deal with the centre straight firstly, coming from the lowest point on the circuit of Murray's Corner at turn number 8 all the way up to the highest corner of Riches at turn number 1, named after Fred Riches, the man who owned the land and allowed motorsport to take place here as of the 1950s. But as the drivers roar the way through the double right-hand apex and up towards Montreal Corner, now known as Wilson in honour of Justin Wilson, but previously named Montreal in reference to the equipped hairpin at the Montreal Street Circuit in Canada, as the drivers go hard on the brakes there into the hairpin, they'll very quickly find as they exit is a quick switch to the left-hand side for the Kinker 3 to make their way onto the Bentley Straight. There they'll roar the way down towards the Brundle into Nelson combination. Left into right there, hard on the brakes and too wide there is going to be very tricky and a tasty task, but emerging out of the right-hand corner, they'll make their way into Bomb Hole at turn number 6, named Bomb Hole not for the reasons you may think it is, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on in today's broadcast, and then all the way through the sweeping right-hander of Coram they'll go, down into Murray's, the heavy braking zone at turn number 8, before making their way back into the centre straight to complete lap and do it all over again. But coming into tonight, let's give you a reminder of the rules, because we can't go racing without them. This is a fixed setup series, and all the setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every race and round. Driver classes, they shall be finalised as the conclusion of round number 3. We haven't got any class changes as of today, but we have got some new drivers on the grid, and we'll introduce them shortly. Sprint race-wise, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. That's given. The race 2 grid shall be set as a top 15 reverse grid based on results of race number 1. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Whoever takes victory in a race number 1, they start 15th on the grid for race number 2, and we continue to flip the finishing order of race number 1 until we get to the 16th place finisher, because they will be starting 16th where they finished in race 1. Of course, the 15th place finisher in race number 1, they get the reward of starting on pole for race number 2. And race number 3's grid, because it's a full feature race grid, it will be a full reverse grid to go with it based on results of race 2. So we take how all the drivers finished in race 2 and we completely flip it upside down and say whoever finished last, so long as they were classified as finishing, they start on pole for the final race of the day. Now in each of the races, each driver shall have one fast repair available, and we also do have independent race stewarding in effect, where our race director is stewarding the races for track limit infringements, albeit there are no track limits to be considered today, given the fact the Snetterton circuit is very aggressive with regards to the fact you dip a tyre wide, you were going off into the weeds, and there will also be the potential deployment of the safety car if our director feels it's required. There will be penalties for track limit infringements, albeit we can see them there on the screen, but we aren't expecting them to be applied. The first and second warnings, no penalty. The third warning, it's a 5-second post-race time penalty. We double it to 10 on the fourth warning, and on the fifth warning, you've earned yourself a drive-through penalty. You've George Russelled yourself. And then we do see, with those drive-through penalties, they must be served within 3 laps, and racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're here for the racing, and let's head back to circuit side here as the drivers make the way around. And well, here is Kieran Smart going very, very sideways in what is a wet Snetterton circuit at the moment, albeit I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to our weather forecast, the rain came prior to this practice session, and with 10 minutes left to go, there's no more rain in the forecast, at least for now. Instead, our drivers are being given the ability here to try and burn off all the water from the circuit as much as possible from the racing line, and therefore we will see a drying circuit over the distance. And what that does mean as well is that as our drivers make the way around here, they're going to be on a mixture of tyre compounds, where some drives on the dry, some drives on the wet tyre, and with these Legends machines, they are very lightweight, only 500 kilograms, if that. The Legends Motor Company machines, these Ford Legends from the 1934 replication. Well, he makes one around there, number 39, Kieran Smart right now, our leading driver overall in the Prime class, and well, he is your championship leader, we believe, coming into this round, albeit 3 different winners in the Prime class over 3 different races, and 8 different drivers made their way onto the podium at the Brands Hatch circuit 2 weeks ago. So while Kieran Smart may top the standings coming into this round, he will be aware of the fact that his time at the top could only be temporary when he does have the likes of Alan McCain, for example, for iRacing Esports, or Nick Clemens just in front of him, working together here to give themselves the best possible lap and getting used to the pack style racing or the slipstream orientated racing when they do go green flag racing for one of 3 times this evening. Well, we could see some new names take to the top today, indeed be on that podium. And once they roar the way around, indeed it's anybody's guess who's going to be leading the Prime class after today. But in terms of Kieran Smart, will definitely put in a brilliant performance. Nick Clemens picked up a win, as did was Alan McCain, but it was Smart who had the most consistent results. As we do see Clemens, in fact that wasn't Nick Clemens, that was Sam Smith, I believe, spearing off the road, so therefore getting a little bit of a mistake. And you may notice as well on our drivers' liveries today, well, the liveries will look a little bit more funky. We have been able to resolve the issue which was on drivers' cars as the Brands Hatch broadcast, which was the custom numbers on the cars were not necessarily coming on through, but they will be as of this round and going forward, and we're very happy to see those custom numbers all down the sides of the cars there. Indeed, our drivers' liveries in full flourishing application. Speaking of which, before we talk about the overall Drivers' Championship, let's talk a little bit about the Goldwyn Motorsports cars out there, including the one from Duncan Morais, and as he makes one around there, a new livery on the machines today, and being created from the very capable hands of the man who unfortunately for the team can't be on the grid this season due to personal circumstances, but he's tuning in and giving a big wave there, ladies and gentlemen, Andy Fox, because he's the man who put these liveries together, and we're absolutely proud of them. And Duncan Morais here giving one in full shine and glory as he makes his way down the start for the straight there and heads up towards turn number 1. Indeed, quite the master for the GWM livery making machine is Andy Fox, and well, absolutely pleased to see those liveries out there. But as Morais makes his way through Rich's corner and down towards turn number 2, well, it was a bit of a frustrating day at the Brands Hatch circuit, albeit he'd loved being in the thick of the battling, and well, he's been definitely getting to the task of these conditions as the South African driver, but I think he's gradually getting there, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do over race distance today. And well, as he makes his way around, we do look to what is other drivers out there, including the Full Tilt V Motorsport drivers of Ben Altria, who's currently in the pit lane, in fact. But have we got Ben Gregory out there? Yes, we have, and there he is in the very funky liveried machine, as we do say hello there to Mark Kemp from the Full Tilt Motorsport team in the YouTube chat. And good evening to you, Mark, and I hope you're doing well as well. And absolutely with a big smile there on your face, I'm sure, seeing your team's drivers out there right now giving it their all today. Albeit, of course, we miss seeing you on the grid as well. We do hope to see you on the grid in a Legends machine, if not an NXTCC machine, again in the near future. Although I do believe you are in the blue lobby for NXTCC Season 9. And, well, also, I think putting in some history there, if I remember, from Snetterton last week, becoming the first ever AM driver to put the car on an oval podium, unless I'm mistaken. And I'm sure you'll correct me if I've got that slightly wrong. But as Gregory makes his way through turn number 1, well, right now he'll be looking to make a little bit of history here to become his own legend, in fact, if you will, pun intended, as he comes down towards turn number 2. But speaking of newcomers on the grid today, as I do see the cheeky remark there from Andy Fox regarding Duncan Morais, I'm surprised he hasn't dented it yet. Well, I'm sure you have a little bit more faith in your driver than that, and I'm sure there's a bit of banter going on between you guys down in the pit lane. In terms of new drivers on the grid today, or debutantes, we do have Josh Brown, albeit I can't see Brown here at the moment. He may be joining at the final hurdle. We also do have out there the arrival of Matthew Addy, albeit can I see Matthew Addy out there? And the answer is no, I can't at the moment, so he might be joining a little bit later. We also do have the arrival of our American driver here, of Dylan Hunter in the 126. Late sign up, but to be fair, better late than never. I'm very happy to have him on the grid here as he makes way around. And one thing I can tell you is, I think this might be his first exposure to driving the Legends machine in the wet, because when I heard him get into the car over the radio, he was pretty much surprised at how slippery the circuit was, even with its relatively dry nature now, in the fact that the spray coming off the back of the car. You can see most of our drivers move into the dry compound, only a couple still out there on the wet tyre. I can imagine those wet runners will be changing the tyres over soon. Well, right now, Dylan getting to grips with the very lightweight and nimble machine, which has proven very highly popular around the globe, no doubt about it. But as he heads on down there, we also do have the arrival on the grid of a very familiar face. Many of you will know him from CXR Project Black. He's been a veteran of NXTGEN Racing Series for as long as I've commentated them. Phil McDougall there as he makes way down towards turn number 1 in the Heineken CXR Project Black machine. And one absolutely lovely gentleman off the circuit, and a great sport on the circuit as well, as he makes his way through it in the 105. And we look forward to seeing what he can do in the Pro-Am class today. And indeed, all of our newcomers in the Pro-Am class, I believe. We've also got Jonathan Berry out there, or John as he's known to our friends and close company. And in terms of where John is, here he is for Mission R, and this might be a one-off appearance today for the number 15 try. We hope a little bit more than that as he makes his way around there. And I want to say, as he crawls his way around, is that livery in reference to, well, I don't think it's Herbie there, and I don't think it's Cars. For some reason, I've got it in my head, that livery, it looks like something out of those children's rollers and strollers that you see and you probably used to grow up on. I can't remember the exact brand or manufacturer that used to make them, but you normally see them in the United Kingdom in the early learning centres, and only parents pushing their kids around, alternatively the kids pedaling them along. And what if so, that livery is absolutely fantastic on the car there. And I must admit, I am grinning from ear to ear with the googly eyes on the front of it, and well, I'm trying to keep a straight face as much as I possibly can right now. But some composure, and as we do, we look forward to Jonathan Berry and see if he can deliver some composure here to get a great result as he rolls his way on around. But as he does so, well, we've still got 4 minutes before we do go racing, or at least into the qualifying session. The Fisher-Price kid at the car, there we go. Mark gets it absolutely on the spot. It was on the tip of my tongue. I couldn't quite remember the name of it. There we go. As we also do say hello to Welsh Boy 2012 there. Good evening to you, Welsh Boy, and I hope you're doing well as well. And well, as all the drivers are all the way around, can we get a word with Mr. Nick Clibbins? We might be able to get a word with him. Let's see what we can do here. Can we get a patch through to the car from the iRace esports driver? I'm just going to see what we can do, ladies and gentlemen, and I think the answer might be no, we can't. I think he might have turned his radio off there, and if so, I think he's in full concentration mode. Can we get a word with any of our other drivers out there right now, having a bit of fun out of the circuit? And I think the answer is going to be yes, we can. And well, as we look further afield, well, I think we are going, oh goodness me, that's a big sideways mount there for Clibbins, as he almost ends up in a bit of a rollover, as many of our drivers going sideways there. I think all pushing a bit too hard through Rich's corner, and I think all getting the memo wrong there, as we do see him calling it on down. But in fact, you know, we're going to get a word with. We're going to try and get a word with this man, Isaac Doble, as we do get the on board, the gyro camera here. And well, let's get a cut through to Isaac in the car as he makes his way on down. And well, as we try and grab a word with him, Isaac, you got time for a quick word?
Yeah, sure.
Isaac, you come into this round as our leader in the Overall Drivers' Championship, 2 wins out of 3, and also a podium at Brands Hatch Indy. What can we expect from yourself today?
Well, with what's looking like to be tricky conditions, I'll just try and keep on the tarmac this time and try and pick up some solid points throughout the evening.
Well, you're looking quick out there, no doubt about it. I have to ask, is this Snetterton circuit one of your favourites? Because you're looking ferociously fast here by the best part of a tenth and a half.
Well, all the British tracks, I wouldn't say it's my favourite track, but I've done it a lot of times on iRacing, been there quite a few times, and actually raced there in real life now, so I know it quite well, and hopefully I'll do alright.
Well, Isaac, we'll leave you to it. Best of luck for this evening, and we'll see you at the checkered flag.
Thank you, cheers.
Seeing here, Isaac there, I think, concentrates as much as possible as he's trying to find a bit more time out there, but he's putting in faster and faster laps each and every lap he turns. Goodness me. And keeping in mind, of course, when he talks about real-life race, he's recently raced around here as part of the Ford Fiesta Juniors Championship under the BSRCC banner, if I remember correctly, and also does a lot of racing on the simulator, and you'll see him in the NXTCC, and indeed trying to follow in the footsteps of his older brothers, Joe and Mikey. And will Snetterton, a special place in the heart now for the Doble family after Mikey Mikey Doble took his first ever overall BTCC win here only 2 days ago, despite the pressure from Snetterton in race number 3 of the day and pulling off an absolute blinder there. And apologies for any spoilers if you haven't tuned into that one. There has been 48 hours there, so I think we're legally allowed to get away with that. But as he makes his way on around, well, can we get a word with any of our other drivers quickly before we do go into qualifying? And I think we might be able to get a quick word with Jonathan Berry. We'll get a patch through to his car. John, have you got a quick moment?
Yes.
How are you finding it out there at the moment? 'Cause I think this might be one of your first times running the Legends in the wet.
It is absolutely one of my first time running Legends in the wet, and it is diabolical. So I've chosen a child's car because, as well known, a little tight car is by a child who can't drive. So I thought it fitting.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Well, as we do see the Luigi helmet there in the car as well. I mean, you've gone full in for the childish spirit here. We absolutely love to see it. So have you set yourself any goals today other than get to the checkered flag?
Don't die. That's it, sadly.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. Well, I think it's a fair goal to go for. With that, we're going to leave you to it because qualifying's about to start. Good luck for tonight.
Thanks very much. Enjoy, everybody.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, for Jonathan Berry, I love that enthusiasm. Just don't die. I mean, that's a very blunt way of putting it, no doubt about it. And as we get ready then, without further ado, it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Who is going to put it on pole ahead of race number 1 of the day? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is over a 15-minute distance. But we've heard from one of our fastest drivers out there and one of our rookies to Legends machine in the wet. But whether they're a rookie or a legend in their own right, they're all absolute legends, to be fair. We're brave in these conditions, and well, Jamie Dory leads the field out of the pit lane then as they head into 15 minutes of qualifying. But as they roar the way on around here, well, the big question is going to be, what can we expect in qualifying? Well, perhaps the biggest expectation, more so than we saw at Brands Hatch Indy, is we are going to see all the drivers look to be in the slipstream of each other, and for the simple reason, you've got 2 very long straights. Oh, goodness me, Dory goes very sideways there, trying to get some temperature into those dry tyres. Indeed, driving on a wet line on a slick tyre. Well, slick tyres do not have the grooves to try and push water aside, so therefore they can prove to be very tricky. But Dory in the end tucking into the draft of one of his next-gen green counterparts, and this is the big point. In fact, you can see how quickly he closed up to the back of the number 23, and that being the number 23 of Lewis Delmont, the younger member of the Delmont family on the grid. The point being that with the tow, you very quickly gain a lot of time, and if you're tactical with the tow and you come up behind another driver from about 7 tenths back on the straight, you are going to gain a huge amount of time, and that could be the difference between you being 10th on the grid versus you being on pole. But as he roars his way on through here, well, Dory will be one of many trying to get himself set up in due course there for the first flying lap. Elsewhere around, we do have Sam Bradley, who's taking a bit of a slow run out the pit lane there, albeit I think he just wants a bit of clear track to begin with, and he'll gradually try and find somebody to work with. But as he roars his way through turn number 1 and down towards turn number 2, some drivers, they'll like qualifying in the tow, others will not. And indeed, it's an interesting discipline here because some drivers, and I'll put my hand up there, particularly on the simulator, and say, I'm not comfortable running behind the car in qualifying. I'd like to have a clear track in front of me. Other drivers, meanwhile, absolutely love having somebody between 5 to 8 tenths in front of them to gain the tow, but also to act as a reference car or a bit of a pace car as they follow on through. But having a pace car here is going to be important because of the slipstream factor, and the slipstream being absolutely useful to giving you plenty of time when you've got these 2 long stretches of road. But as we do say hello to Shroom at 1 there, who talks about the little tight cozy coupe in reference to the car being piloted by Mr. Berry out there. Jonathan Berry making his way around right now. There you can see it once again. And indeed, the Fisher-Price car absolutely making everybody smile as he makes way down. We look forward to seeing what kind of lap he can deliver, as we spoke to him only moments ago. As he roars his way along at this point, or looking elsewhere in the field, we do have Crest Autosports Nigel Stock making his way along. And as he heads up towards what will be turns 5 and 6, heading into Brundle into Nelson here. More it'll feel like Brundle into Nelson, but will he bundle it into Nelson is what some others may say, not specifically about Nigel, but in the fact it's so easy to make a mistake going through Brundle into Nelson, given the fact you have got a trail braking zone into a sweeping left-hander, and then suddenly you've got to be hard on the brakes all the way into turn number 5. The right-hand of Nelson, and then rolling into Bomb Hole. But as they come on around and roll them through, well, in terms of a little bit of trivia for you, if you're wondering why Bomb Hole Corner is called Bomb Hole, it's not what you might think it is. Many would say it's because was a bomb dropped there on the Snetterton airfield during the Second World War. Well, no, there's no account of a bomb being dropped there, as well, you'll be thinking they're racing at the moment down the start-finish straight, but they're all trying to pick the slipstream off each other. But it's because when motorcycle racers used to race through there in the 60s and 70s, with the depression in the middle of the road at Bomb Hole Corner, they used to refer to the corner as an absolute, well, I can't, oh, goodness me, that's a car backwards, and I believe that's why the Irish esports cars, is that Sam Smith pointing the wrong way? Yes, it is Sam Smith who's gone all the way round and backwards. How exactly did he manage to do that? Let's take a look. Was he made his way on around? Well, this was into Kieran. Well, this was much earlier on, so Smith taking a bit of a oh, goodness me, going very sideways there through Kieran corner, and well, Smith's woes began there, and I believe he might have had a big spin round, as in the end he managed just to avoid taking out the polystyrene board. We're going to stay with him here all the way onto the centre straight, and as he made his way along, well, dirt on the tyres, this isn't going to bode well normally, because you need at least slack, try and get all the dirt off of the rubber, and as he made his way on down here in the draft of what was the cars up the road, but also some company behind, into Rich's Bend he went, side by side with the 39, and well, let the 39 go on through, and as he made his way around here, did the rear let go? Yes, it did, on the outer line, trying to steer too much and get the power down, went all the way around, and almost collected Nick Clemens with him, so that explains what happened to Sam Smith, who took a big twirl until around, not just once, but twice. But coming back to Bomb Hole Corner, and quite appropriately there, Smith does the same as well. It's in reference to the fact that motorcycle racers used to refer to it as a absolute b-hole of a corner. I'm not allowed to repeat the word on stream. In fact, I think I can get away with it once. Refer to it as a bum hole of a corner. Of course, at the time, not appropriate to say that on TV, particularly in the 60s and the 70s, or at least on radio, I should say, because the first live televised broadcast of any motorsport was the Japanese Formula 1 Grand Prix at Fuji in 1975, and the Hunt vs Lauda showdown. It might be 1976, in fact. I'm sure some historical anorak can get that out for me. But the point being, it wasn't appropriate to refer the corner by what everyone used to refer to it to, as therefore it meant that the name got changed into Bomb Hole Corner, and that's why Bomb Hole is a bomb hole and not the other way it's referred to. And it's not because explosives were dropped into that corner. But as we come on here and stop talking waxing lyrical about circuit names, while the drivers roar the way around, Kieran Smart now making his way in towards turn number 6. Through he goes through Bomb Hole, and as he does so there, just sliding his way on out, and well, from him, let's take a little look further down the field, and we look to Cal Murray in the number 14, the Next Gen Green drivers. He comes towards the end of another lap here, and we're currently down in 19th place. We do have the best part of, I believe, 26 drivers here in the tents today. We do also have Mark Sykes out there, albeit I believe Mark Sykes might be acting as our safety car driver today, so therefore we are going to be slightly amending with regards to Sykes. Won't be in that classification for too much longer, albeit he is deputising the safety car driver today for Gaz Williams, who couldn't quite make it, as we're to understand it. We're very happy to have Mr. Sykes here, as always, and helping out and making sure things proceed as planned. And as we do, all the drivers making the way through, and Cal Murray there being passed by the 36 of Lee Horn that goes straight on, and Horn completely going deep as he makes his way through, and will brings it back together now, but not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever. And well, for Lee Horn, just a little bit too eager into the corner, carrying too much speed, and in the end missing his braking point entirely, but brings it back now as he roars his way along in towards turn number 4. Well, as he comes on down, I can imagine now he'll get that clocked and he'll realise, okay, went too deep, and next time around I'm going to have to be a little bit smarter with my braking point. But coming on through, well, we look from him into Isaac Doble, well, the fastest man in practice by a considerable margin of almost 2.5 tenths, and right now looking to be one of the fastest drivers out there in this qualifying session, if not the fastest, albeit Lee Horn only 800ths off of the back of Isaac, so therefore you would imagine that right now Doble's not taking anything for granted, as he does have Jamie Dory right in front of him for company, as they make the way out of the final quarter, where it's now going to be an on-board lap with Jamie Dory as he takes us around for a flying lap here of the Snetterton 200 circuit. As we ride on board and look over his right shoulder, well, down the start-finish straight he goes. No slipstream here. In fact, he's going to peel aside, so he's going to end that lap. And as he does so, we'll still stay on board here to see him in the tow, letting Isaac Doble go. Through Richard's corner, he goes in 4th gear, carrying all the speed there, and then a little bit more. Just about keeps it on circuit. And now into Wilson Hairpin of turn number 2. Hard on the brakes, down at the 100-metre board, all the way down to 1st gear. Flicks it right, then flicks it left, up to 2nd on the apex of turn 3. And now onto the Bentley back straight. Here he'll pick up up the distant toe from Isaac, but what you'll notice is being in that toe, well, he's very far back at the moment, but he'll very gradually build up that speed, and with the speed he was going into turn 1 in excess of 107 miles an hour, when out in the slipstream, look at how much speed he's picked up here into 6th gear, and as he makes way into Brundle, dabbing the brakes there, down 2 gears, down a 3rd gear into 3rd, then completely onto 2nd gear there. Oh, good speed as Doble goes around, and Dory takes evasive action there, snaps the car left, and well, that was a very dramatic moment in the lap, and I think for Jamie Dory, that's going to bring this qualifying lap to a close, but indeed drama there, and Isaac Doble pushing harder and harder, but in the end up pushing it a bit too far, and Jamie Dory backing it off entirely as the whole field winds its way around now, and well, as they do, Jonathan Berry just being a little bit further up the road from that field, making its way on through, and we have to look back to Lewis Mason, the Aztec racer driving the 991, who finds himself out of position there, coming up through Murray's corner, in reference to the late great Murray Walker, and that's the car off. That's Nick Clibbins who's taking a spin to the grass. It might be a drying circuit, but everybody right now is trying to keep it together here as they make their way across that timeline, and those who can find the ultimate time on that drying line, I think it's all going to come down to the final seconds of this qualifying session, and well, that is going to be a surprise, a welcome one to be certain, as they all roar the way out. Big run wide, that's Kieran Smart who rejoins, but then he ends up going onto the grass again for Track Scotland. He can't get off the grass, well, eventually he does get off the grass there, but that's going to invalidate his lap, and Lewis Mason right now must be thinking to himself, what on earth has gone on around, as we see Barry's had a spin there, as he does rejoin, as he rolls his way down, Barry I should say, not Barry, and as they roar the way down the back straight, well, right now, Lewis Mason carrying on all the way in towards turn number 4. He'll go further back down the order. Newcomer as well to the grid today, Matthew Williams in the 191. Well, as he rolls his way through the right-hand here, the privateer, and I believe saying he's part of the Gravedigger team there on the back of the car, unless I'm mistaken. Well, right now, the only thing he's going to be digging is digging deep to try and find a bit more time out there, given he's 2.6 seconds off of the pole lap overall, and he's 2.4 seconds off of Pro-Am pole. That's Nick Clibbins. Well, we're very happy to see Williams on the grid here and gradually getting acquainted with the car, and indeed loving that livery there. It looks like something not only a mother could love, aka a Frankenstein car, but that's what the liveries on these Legends can do. You can do absolutely everything with regards to these liveries, and well, who can fault it, to be fair, as he makes his way down towards turn number 4 as he comes into the braking zone. Well, right now Williams just trying to find a little bit more time as he rolls left into right, Brundle into Nelson there, takes a little bit of curb, and as he comes out to the right-hander, behind him a very sideways full tilt motorsport machine in the form of Benjamin Gregory following him around, and in fact that was Ben Trier following around. Gregory's a bit further up the road, and in the end that's going to be a mistake there from Williams. It runs wide, so it's going to invalidate the lap, but he's come back on, but now he'll know he'll have to go again. But from a driver who's had to go again, so a driver comes into the pits. Well, this is Gregory coming on in, I think deciding to come in order to put a bit more fuel in the car and also put on a fresh pair of dry tyres. Well, everyone's on the slick at the moment given the conditions of the circuit, and Gregory being serviced as Andrew Pike crosses the line, and as he does so into turn 1, the Sim Racing Collective 57 driver rolling his way on through, and I believe we've only got Pike here today. Unfortunately, we haven't got Kieran Sharp, who I was catching up with in the build-up to tonight, and he was saying, unfortunately, due to work commitments, he's not able to make it. He was thinking of making qualifying and race number 1, but unfortunately not to be, so therefore we have the pleasure of seeing the number 57 by itself today, but I get the feeling that Sharp may be back a little bit later on in the season, and well, it's not quite the same. We don't have the full Sim Racing Collective team here, but it's going to be Pike who flies the banner for the whole team, and as he makes his way along there, just waltzing his way along a very wet side of the circuit down the Bentley Straight. Well, that's going to put a lot of wet water on the tyres and cool them down. But he might be using this as an opportunity to take a short breather before he gets himself back up to speed once again. Well, as he does get ready to go once again, well, speaking of drivers who are going at full tilt, here's Lewis Delmont ahead of Father Adam, and then behind him it's Cal Murray, and the number 23 driver right now pulling Adam Delmont along as they get ready to go on to another flying lap, and let's see if we can make it to the end of this lap as they head on to another qualifying lap here with only 3 minutes left on the clock. Well, we're on board then with Adam Delmont as he makes his way down. As he does so, into the braking zone for turn at number 1. 6th gear, 150 miles an hour, drops the gear down to 5th and goes for a nice late apex there. Keeps it together, albeit he's going to get very close here to the back of Lewis and Cal Murray. Well, down to the brakes there he'll go at the 100 metre board, down to turn number 2, a bit of a compromise line, but gets it stopped in 2nd gear. Now right into left here for a turn at number 3, and as he mounts the curb and powers out, now keep the car to the right hand side and look to try and sip on the toe of Isaac Doble. In the distance there, about 1 second gap between the two of them, but he will still pick up a distant toe. You can see in his rear view mirror, that is Lewis Delmont getting closer and closer as they power the way along and going in towards the Brundle into Nelson complex. 6th gear, braking from 160 miles an hour, holding the brake brakes nice and steady there, left into right, now down to third. Will he drop to second at the apex here? No, stays in third to get better traction out of the corner. Now into bomb hole he goes, up to fourth, drop off the throttle, doesn't need to touch the brake here, through the right-hander, sweep on through, lovely use of the exit curb, now into Kieran bend. Now just hold the line, hold the throttle, keep feathering it every so often in fifth gear, feather, 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 keep it over to the right, and then onto the brakes he'll go, as he now drops it all the way down to third gear, gets a lovely approach from Murray's, uses all the runoff area that he's legally allowed to, and for Adam Delmont, this is a nice lap. What's it going to be? Well, he's not improved in sectors 1 and 2, but you never know what he could do in sector 3. Comes to the line, and he was fourth going into this qualifying session, or at least this lap. He's up to second there with a fantastic final sector, projecting him all the way up to 121.982, and right now 3 tenths for Isaac Doble's fastest time of the session. That's a 1 minute 21.682, but still for Adam Delmont, he's going to be very happy with that, because now he'll know that he has got that front row very firmly in his sights. With 1.5 minutes left on the clock, and with a lap time here of just shy of 1.5 minutes, time is running out for all of our qualifiers as Thomas Delaney has improved there in the SVR Motorsport machine, the 555, roaring his way through the right-hander of turn number 1, and he definitely enjoyed a lot of brilliant battling at Brands Hatch 2 weeks ago. We're expecting plenty more from him today. He's currently 9th in the Pro-Am class and looking for a little bit more time out there before all is said and done. Well, through the right-hander, a big twitch there, coming through the hairpin at Montreal or Wilson, and in the end decides to abort the lap and makes his way into the pit lane. So for Thomas Delaney, that's going to be the story. Ian Manners, meanwhile, makes his way around, and as he does so, we'll head down towards turn number 2, and here in the JWM Motorsport machine, onto the brakes he goes through the right-hander, and the 52 driver down in 20th place at the moment. Well, it's nowhere near as close as it was in terms of qualifying at Brands Hatch Indy, where we did see our top 10 separated by less than 4 tenths of a second, if my memory serves me correctly, but we are seeing some close portions in qualifying. The top 4 separated by 4 tenths, and from first all the way through to 11th, it's just over a second. So therefore, as the circuit drives, we are starting to see those qualifying times getting closer and closer. Adam Delmont, meanwhile, has sprung to the top with his penultimate lap of qualifying as he exchanges places there with Jamie Dory, a 21.539. That's 1.5 tenths faster. Can Isaac Doble respond there as we see Dory going a bit sideways, as does Adam Delmont. Delmont, in the end, makes his way into the braking zone. Coming up behind him is Isaac Doble, goes round, and for Isaac Doble, that is going to be a qualifying lap that's aborted as he pulls himself off of the racing line. And for Isaac Doble, as Lee Horn gets it wrong there, coming out of Nelson, they're all getting it wrong at the last possible moment here in the 15th minute of qualifying, and now into overtime we go. But Horn, he's not going any further than 7th now in qualifying. What can Nick Clemens do? Well, he's still on a lap as he powers his way down the backstretch. Matthew Sheraton a bit further up the road. He's making his way through Corham and into the Murray's corner now as he comes onto the brakes here in the Tomato machine for Aztec Racing. We're on his way out there. We've got a driver in the weeds. Not quite sure who that was. I think that might have been Alan McCain. But here comes Matt Sheraton to the line. He's 14th currently, but can he get himself inside the top 10? And that answer is going to be, as he buzzes the wall, it is going to be 5th place there for Matthew Sheraton. A lovely end to his qualifying session, a 22.0. Well, a lot of drivers are leaving it late in the tank. What can Dylan Hunter do as he comes on down the start finish straight? Well, here he comes then. He'll be willing the car on. He's currently last of our runners on a 24.98. Can he get himself into the 23s for this lap? It is a personal best by looks of things, and the answer is going to be, it's a 24.930, so not quite the improvement he wanted, but still a little bit closer to Matthew Williams. It's going to be close between them at the back of the field, and that's going to be a fun one, no doubt about it. But as qualifying comes to a close, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that is everybody's qualifying session complete, and it's Adam Delmont who takes his maiden pole position from qualifying this season, and he'll be joined on the front row by Isaac Doble, and behind them on the second row of the grid, Jamie Dory starts third, and Nick Clemens is your pole sitter in the Pro-Am, starting 4th place today. Was all the drivers trip their way into the pit lane. We're not too far away now from going green flag racing, and when we do, something tells me these opening 12 laps of racing are definitely going to be spicy. But as we do see Nick Clemens celebrate today, he's very happy with that, and well, you can completely understand why. A brilliant pole lap there, albeit the rear tyres are not going to appreciate that, nor will the track organisers. I think they will be charging him a fine for the fact he's burnt a nice big hole into the pit lane tarmac while he parks on up, and everybody's still on a round. Well, I think we still do have Matthew Sheraton on a valid lap here. No, in fact, he makes his way into the pit lane, and Dylan Hunter is on a cool-down lap as well, so there won't be any more laps allotted to our drivers. So that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and well, as they all come through, it's now time to head to the grid for the first of our 3 races today. So as they all make the way onto the grid for race number 1 of round 2 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, as powered by Doble Motorcycles and brought to you on iRacing. It is Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green, who has taken pole position with a 21.539. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing. Behind them, starting third, Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing, who is in the company of Nick Clemens, the prime pole sitter for iRace Esports. Matthew Sheraton begins today 5th on the grid for Aztec Racing, a last gasp effort in qualifying, rewarding him well. And he's in the company of Lewis Delmont for NXTGEN Green, who's only 400ths behind. Stuart Winers, second place prime driver in this qualifying order, starts 7th for Track Scotland. A good job from him, ahead of Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing, who had the pace in qualifying but couldn't quite put it together. Kieran Smart begins 9th there for Track Scotland, dead in line behind his teammate, and completing the top 10 will be the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Andrew Pike. Starting 11th, best of rest, is Ben Altria for Full Tilt Motorsport, ahead of Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing. Alan McCain starts 13th for iRace Esports, ahead of Ben Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport, and we have behind them on the grid the combination pair of row number 8 of Duncan Rise, the privateer, and Sam Bradley for NXTGEN Green. Then it's going to be Nigel Stott for Crest Autosport, who lines up 17th ahead of Ian Manners, and behind them, completing the top 20, it'll be Thomas Delaney and Cal Murray. The NXTGEN Green trial will then be followed up on row at number 11 by none other than Sam Smith for iRace Esports, and it'll be Phil McDougall who completes that 11th row, 22nd for CXR Project Black. On the penultimate row of the grid, it is going to be Jonathan Berry for Mission R and Matthew Williams, the privateer. And then starting last but not least, in 25th place, it is going to be Dylan Hunter there in the 126, and we're all set to go there from the back of the field. So 25 starters, your safety car trial will be none other than Mark Sykes, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone absolutely ready to go there. It's a quick rundown of the order, and as all the order sits there ready to go, well, right now for Adam Delmont and Isaac Doble, it's going to feel as though it is going to be a long run towards turn number 1. In fact, that's how long it is. You can't actually see the apex of turn 1 from here, or the turning point, but will it be Adam Delmont or will it be Isaac Doble leading out to 1 and into 2? Well, for the first time today, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be 5 red lights. And our legends are away here for race number 1 of the day at the Snetterton 200 circuit. And as they charge the way away, well, a couple of drivers having slow starts further down the order, but otherwise the top 10 are roaring their way into the opening corner. And Delmont gets a brilliant start with Nick Clemens putting the pressure on Isaac Doble. Clemens already up to 3rd ahead of Cheverton. Cheverton getting past Dory as well. So Dory's dropped 2 places. In fact, as they roar the way through, a couple of drivers running wide as the circuit continues to dry up. There is a little bit of standing water on the circuit, but not too much at this point, as we see them break the way then through Wilson Hairpin. And as they come out and switch back into the left-hander of turn number 3, well, all the field is safely on through for the first time today, albeit I believe both Berry and Hunter stalling at the start, and therefore now the field makes its way down the back straight. 23 cars all together at the moment. The field will gradually now begin to spread out as we can see Nick Clemens towing his way into with second. Can he get himself into the lead here? He's going to look up the inside for Brundle into Nelson. 2 wide he goes versus Delmont. These two friends off circuit, well, rivals on circuit of 2 different classes, and Nick Clemens makes his way around the outsider to take lead for a brief moment, but as he does so, well, how long will it be, as it's going to be Delmont back up his inside. Further back we can see Pike, Delmont, and that's Lewis Delmont and Lee Horn all fighting over 7th place as they start to lose the top 6. The top 6 pulling away with Stuart Winers leaping his way up into 6th place, intriguingly enough, and latching onto the back of the top 5, so great job from him as they all come down into Murray's for the first time. We can see there Lewis Mason on the outside getting very cagey under braking, a bit of door to door between himself and the 504. Around goes Kieran Smart, goes for a big spin, and Kieran Smart having the spin there, a little bit too eager on the throttle, and it's all gone backwards there for the Track Scotland driver, but surely it'll go forwards at some point. But after 1 lap of racing, it is a battle between Adam Delmont and Nick Clemens that takes centre stage. They roar the way through, and Clemens still holding on to lead with Isaac Doble in 3rd, Jamie Dory in 4th, Stuart Winers in 5th, Matthew Cheverton is in 6th. Then we have a split to Lewis Delmont in 7th. Ahead, oh goodness me, as that is getting very, very sideways there between multiple drivers. We've got a few drivers off the road there. We'll try and get you an update on who that was very shortly. We have had Alan McCain be one of the drivers involved in it, Sam Bradley as well. I don't think there's any sign of a safety car as Phil McDougall's gone around. Oh, goodness me. And that is a big, big shunt there coming through turn number 3. And, well, that is going to send, I believe, Thomas Delaney very sideways. We're going to put him down the order as we do see Alan McCain make his way on through. And Alan McCain and Cal Murray both making the way onwards. Thomas Delaney now trying to come back at Murray down the back straight. And as he brings it back together, 2 wide, they go all the way to Brundle. But which of these two is going to be leading it into the braking zone? And the answer is it is going to be Delaney by a nose tip here under braking, albeit in the end, I think both drivers there deciding not to fight it too hard after the wars they've been through. as they make the way around, and we look back to the front of the field when the second lap comes to a close, and as it does so, well, Clemens has fallen back to third, but Isaac Doe and Adam Delmont getting back ahead. Delmont is your leader now as they make the way into lap number 3, but will it be that way come the end of the next lap? And the answer is probably, but we're not quite sure, for the simple reason it can all chop and change at a very short moment's notice. But roaring the way across the line, and as they come down, we look back from the rear of your race leader, but look at the toe there as Isaac Doe comes flying along and looking around the outside. Oh, he's not going to be able to make the move as they now make the way through one in towards 2. But oh, goodness me, Adam Delmont snatching the car as it tried to snap loose from the rear end. These cars so lightweight coming through these high load corners, and that goes to show you how sensitive they are to direction changes. As they make the way through, Delmont right now continuing to hold on there, trying to frustrate Isaac Doe as Jamie Dory now exchanges paint versus Clemens, the leading Pram driver. But look at this, the orange machine there of Stuart Wyniss is on the back. He's your second place Pram driver, and Matthew Sheraton is pushing him along as well, as it's going to be 2 by 2. Get out the way, Billboard. We don't want it censored. Oh, goodness me, it's going very wrong. Dory goes around and in the end avoids taking the rest of the field with him. I think there was a small tap there for Jamie Dory as he does rejoin, as he does, however, he drops behind Lewis Delmont and Andrew Pike, and he's gone around. We're going to get a replay of that very shortly. That could have been close to curtains, but in the end it was only Dory who got caught up. I say only as one of our big players in that group. Meanwhile, further back, that is going to be Mason versus McDougall into Nelson, and coming on through, Lewis Mason gains the place there for 11th in Pro-Am. Behind, we've got the battle between Delaney and Murray, and I think that's going to go to Cal Murray here into Bombhole Corner. In fact, no, he has to back out on the inside line. From them, it's all kicking off right towards the front of the field again as they make the way down the line stretch. Up the centre straight they go, literally as well as figuratively, as they come across the line, which Clemens and Delmont literally side by side there, with Clemens and nose ahead as they cross the line by 700s, and on to lap 4. Well, right now, that has really been the story so far, as Clemens almost loses it, and in the end, Adam Delmont gets hitched up behind Clemens. That's going to now with Stuart Wyniss to come through. Wyniss just about gets it together as he heads into the braking zone here for Wilson Hairpin, and that's a gap of 6 tenths. Can he make a breakaway here? I don't think he's got enough daylight in order to do so, but he's trying his hardest. Adam Delmont, meanwhile, side by side here, Matthew Sheraton, and well, these two pro drivers right now fighting as the two pro-ams try to pull away. But here comes Isaac Doe looking to make it 3 wide down the backstretch for the 4th time today, and as they power the way along, well, right now, as they come all the way down towards Brundle into Nelson, it's going to be 3 wide on the apex, but in the end, it's not going to quite be that way because Isaac Doe backs off, Matthew Sheraton drops back there as well, and Adam Delmont retakes 3rd place, albeit for a brief moment. You can see Andrew Pike, Jamie Dory, and also Lewis Delmont there all together, albeit Lewis Delmont at the back of the trio, at the head of the trio I should say, and as he rolls his way up through Bombhole Corner, well, right now, if the top 5 continue to fight the way they are, we could see this top 5 suddenly become a top 8 pack, and well, we have Ben Altria only at 1.5 seconds behind and closing as well, so anything to play for here as we do see Altria and Gregory, the 2 teammates, running nose to tail with Ian Manners bringing up the rear, so these 3 very eager to try and get onto the back of the top 8 where they can. They're fighting over 9th through to 11th, but I think they've all mutually agreed not to fight each other here, and it is a little bit of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, as the saying goes, albeit the 2 teammates, they will not want to treat each other as enemies, they want to treat each other as team rivals where appropriate, but from them, as we do then see 3 wide further down the order, and that is 3 wide between Smith, Smart and Stock, whereas it's the 3 S's all heading in towards the Richards corner. That's going to move up the inside from Kieran Smart trying to recover this race, as Smith in the end holds the centre, and Nigel Stock goes to the cutback. Brilliant intuition here from the Crest Autosport driver, goes the cutback move, and in the end he's not quite alongside versus Smart, so Smart's going to occupy the space and have to defend versus Smith as they come through. Sam Smith goes round, Sam Bradley avoids the wayward Smith, and Smith brings it back together, but as he does so, well, very quickly gets the car turned around, albeit that's going to put him a long way down the order, but he'll try and slingshot his way back up the order as quickly as he can, and from them, 3 wide a bit further up the road, we did see some sparks fly from the underside of the 13, and as they come through the right hander, that's collected. That's Jamie Dory going around with Lewis Delmont as well. In the end, both of them trying to share the space on the apex of Nelson, and well, it didn't quite work out, but they both rejoin here, and well, I think Lewis Delmont, respecting the fact that he went for it, and it was a good move, it didn't quite work out. Lee Horn now looks up the inside to Bombhole and goes around, so for Horn in the 36, I think having the nose chopped off slightly there from Lewis Delmont, I don't think saw him coming into Bombhole. Well, Horn in the end does get it pointed back in the right direction, but he'll be a bit frustrated with that one, and meanwhile, further back, it's all happening every which way you look. We're side by side between Cal Murray and Phil McDougall as they head in towards Coram Corner, through the long right hander they go, and the 105 on the inside, but very, very touchy there on the inside. You can see the car wobbling as Murray tries to cut back in the end he does, but cuts in behind. And through the left hand of the final corner they go, and on to the halfway point of this race they trek as they roar the way down. Well, McDougall might have got ahead, but the problem is Murray's going to be absolutely sniffing the slipstream there as they roar the way and past our commentary booth. And well, that is a very wide berth that we can see Murray giving there. I think pulling out a bit too wide. I think over expecting how wide the car would go round. And as they head into the side of turn number 1, well, right now the number 14 driver here, he's close to trying to make the move happen. But look at this, Duncan Murray's in the Goldwyn Motorsport car, also looking for an opportunity here as they go too wide into the braking zone, albeit it's going to mean Murray's up the inside of the pair of them as Murray goes deep, McDougall on the outside, and in the end, can Murray make it a 2-for-1 special at the Wilson hairpin? And the answer is no, he can't quite do it, but he almost does it, but he will carry on the momentum here down the backstretch, albeit gives McDougall a little bit of push on the rear to say to him, look, here's a little bit of speed boost, I want you to catch up to Stock, who's further up the road, albeit with the gap to Stock being 5 seconds, they're going to have to do a lot of working together now, and hope that Stock ends up fighting with Smith if they want to close up to him, but there's plenty of time in this race, and there's plenty of opportunities to do so as he goes round there. Does Moraes, gets it slightly wrong into Nelson, and in the end now has to get the car turned back around, but it's so easy to get it wrong here, particularly where the circuit is still trying. The spray has mostly gone from the cars. The only try out on the wet tyre at the moment is Thomas Delaney down in 25th. He's experimenting with what the wet can do, understandably in case we see any more rain later today. You never know, never say never, but as we do see it, Clemens and Winus making their way to lap number 7. Well, your race leaders right now, your 2 prime drivers, are absolutely running away with this because Matthew Sheraton is still trying to keep eyes at Doble behind him. We have lost Adam Delmont from all of this. Indeed, we had that mistake from Adam Delmont only moments ago. But as they roar the way and out to turn number 3, well, Sheraton and Doble, they've got a 2.6 second gap between themselves and the leaders are continuing to push each other onwards here. And well, understandably, Stuart Winus right now is pretty much saying to Nick Clemens, look, Nick, I don't want to fight you. I want us to run away and make this a two-way fight for victory because at the end of the day, 2 primes leading the top 2 positions. Well, it's not uncommon in the Legends, but when it happens like this, particularly the first race of the day, we've got to go with it as we ride on board here looking down over the engine cowling of Stuart Winus' 61. As the Scotsman makes his way along here, his goal right now will be to just simply stay behind Clibbins, observe as much as possible, and in the final 2 laps, that's where the gloves will begin to come off. But it is an art staying this close to a rival and working with a rival for the simple reason you make one mistake or misanticipate what your rival's going to do, well, it can end up in tears. You make contact with them, alternatively you can run deep and lose your rival, or alternatively upon that you can start to cost each other time and cause the rest of the field to catch up. But that gap between 2nd and 3rd up to 2.7 seconds they cross the timeline. Clemens with the fastest lap of the race, a 21.574. Sheraton a personal best in 3rd, a 22.241. But Clemens now definitely starting to build the pace. One is pushing him along as they make their way through it. Lewis Delmont into the pit lane as look at my contact booth window. Is that for a pair work or is that for a drive-through penalty? We'll have to see. Oh, a big snatch there, and that is going to catch out Clemens a little bit coming through 2 into 3, and this is where the slight mistakes start to cost them time because now Winus is alongside going down the back straight. He will pick up a slight side draft, but nowhere near as much as he would in the toe behind, so therefore they're going to exchange places here as they make their way through, but this will cost them a little bit of time down the straight compared to Sheraton and Doble who can start to work together. We will see the lead swap hands, so Winus will take the lead of this race for the first time here as they roar the way through left into right, but as they come down, well, they'll know that Sheraton and Doble are closing quickly. And speaking of how quickly they're closing, there they are. They have gained down that straight a whole second as a result of the fact the 2 leaders were not able to work together, whereas Sheraton and Doble were able to push each other along. But roaring the way through Corrin Bend. Well, that's just 1 lap, and we still do have another 4 to go after this one. Further back, it is getting very tetchy and close here between Alan McCain, Ben Trier, and Sam Bradley. As Bradley on the back of this fight as they roll the way through. We ride on board here in the car with the SpongeBob helmet as they make the way through it. Looking very tight on the inside there is going to be Trees trying to get the door open versus McCain. And there's contact between the 2. McCain is forced wide, and as they come down, well, McCain in the end still holds that inside line in towards Murray's corner. Switching back now is Bradley looking to get back in the draft again, and well, brilliant race there. Is always going to get a little bit bitey, a little bit elbows out, but as they roar the way along, a lot of these drivers will be very familiar with each other. They've raced in multiple next-gen racing series, including the NXTCC, and therefore they'll all be accustomed to how they all race as they roar the way to turn number 1, and that is going to be Bradley up the inside of Ultrier into the opening corner. Meanwhile, McCain still able to hold on to his position for now. This is the fight for 9th, 10th and 11th overall, or what is 4th and 5th in Pro-Am, with Ultrier being a pro driver, the other 2 being primes here, here. So it's going to be Ultria who tucks into the middle now, puts himself as the filler in the Pro-Am sandwich. And as they come through the left-hander turn number 3, no change at the moment. Further back, a big spin for Ian Manners there. He's had a trip around at turn number 3. And well, with that spin, that's not going to make him happy. If anything, that's going to cause him now to lose the top 14. Albeit the great thing for him is if he finishes where he currently is, he will be inheriting a reverse grid pole position for race number 2 of that top 15 inverted. From them, Isaac Doble, Matthew Sheraton, they swap places here. And well, they're 1.5 seconds off the back of Clibbins at the moment. They are closing little by little. You can see that in the camera shot, how much the gap's compressed over the last 2 laps. They need to work together a little bit more. They need to get within about 1.2 seconds before the tow starts to become noticeable. And when they get within 1 second, that's when you really start to see those slipstream effects come to prevalence. As they roar the way across that line, well, Clibbins and One is swap places again. I think these two have ripped up the script right now, and they decided they're perhaps not going to work together as much as they were earlier. And well, this is going to lead to even more battling here. And as Alex Meredith has said, this is crazy. Looks great fun indeed. I think they're having fun out there. And well, if you're tuning in right now, ladies and gentlemen, want to be on the grid for this, we'll tell you a little bit later about how you can potentially be on the grid in the NXTGEN Legends Cup, as this series is open to everybody indeed. We're happy to have sign-ups midway through the season, but right now the only thing we're midway through is a race here as they roar the way down. And again, Clibbins leading down the Bentley straight with Winers keeping him on his company here. But again, you can just see the body language change, where Clibbins before was very happy just to run on the racing line, not really worried about Winers being close to him, expecting the 61 drive to really keep him honest and work with him. But right now, with the altercations they've had, some brilliant battling to be fair. I think they're enjoying it. But now both drivers here, I think, starting to play the game of high-speed chess, which is what is my rival going to do move-wise as we get closer towards the crescendo of this race. But we will see, as we still got that brilliant freeway fight here for 9th place between Bradley, McCain and Ultria. Ultria, the pro in amongst the Pro-Ams. He roars out the corner, riding on board with the 504 as it slides its way loose, coming through Nelson into Bob. Goes, gets very close there as McCain has an absolute scrap heap of a run through Bombhole Corner. Now it's going to be Ultra out the inside of the pair of them through Coram Bend. It'll be through the long right-hander, but of course the problem will be they'll go to the left-hander on Murray's Bend, and as they do, can Ultra go all the way around the outside? Yes, he can. He gets it absolutely nailed on the dot there through the braking zone, and Ben Ultra up into 9th. The only problem is, for as spectacular as that was, he's now got to do it all again, because Bradley and McCain will both get the tow here as they make their way down the start for the straight. 3 wide they come across the line, and it's going to be the loss there for 2 place almost for Ultria, albeit he's going to try and force the inside into Rich's Bend. Can he hold on? And the answer is yes, he can versus Bradley, but Alan McCain just sweeps around the outside and says, okay, I'm going to take the leader's fight for now, albeit he's going to take it for now, and I emphasise the word now because coming down into Wilson Hairpin, they'll make their way out here, and whoever the leader is at this point, well then they're going to be subject potentially to what will be a lot of pressure down the back stretch. But as they roar the way on through, well, from them, we'll look back to Nigel Stock, who's in a bit of a battle. Is that rain? Yes, that's rain coming in towards turn number 1. Surely we're not going to have rain on the final lap, because if so, this could make the circuit a very tricky right at the end. There's no other rain on our camera, so I think it is just making its way towards Richards Bend at the moment. That is going to be a sudden tide turner, as that's a big slide loose there from Duncan Rice as Nigel Stock makes his way out the inside to clear him. And meanwhile, as we come back to the front of the field, well, this was lap number 11. Of course, we've got 12 laps to go, and with this, it will be our final lap of racing in race number 1. Some rain at turn number 1 from what we've seen on the cameras, but as they roll their way across the line, that's your Pro-Am leaders and your overall leaders. That's Nick Clemens and Stuart Winers together. They do have a 2-second gap to the rest of the field, but as they come into turn 1, look at the rain, and this is going to make it very slippery. And Winers right now, he may be glad he's become the race leader here at a critical juncture. As you can see, Isaac Doe and Matthew Sheraton only 1.7 seconds behind. Well, down in towards the hairpin they go, and as they do, well, Isaac Doe right now careening forward here. He's just closed down 3 attempts alone in the space of the opening 2 quarters. He is pushing hard, albeit as they make the way along, Matthew Sheraton's going to push him every step of the distance as they make the way down the backstretch. Sheraton wants to work with him initially, but looking to the front of the field, Winers goes defensive here, but Clemens is going to look round the outside in towards Brundle, and as they come down, well, they swap the places in the rear of the picture. Isaac Doe side by side versus Sheraton. 2 wide they come. They have the inside into Nelson. Sheraton's going to hook it around the outside, squeeze Isaac Doe a little bit, but just holds on there as he collects the car back together side by side. They go to Bombhole Corner, and Isaac Doe right now trying to keep that run of podiums going from last time out, and as they roar the way in towards Coram Bend, he's got the inside there. But meanwhile, from him, Nick Clemens right now, 4 attempts of a second gap as they come down to the braking zone here for Murray's Bend. Through the left-hander they go, and as they do, Sheraton up the inside there of Isaac Doble, but coming back to the front of the field, we're going to see our first Pram Oval winner this season, ladies and gentlemen, and it is going to be for race number 1 of the day, Nick Clemens, who takes victory over one in Prime ahead of Stuart Winus. Isaac Doble versus Matthew Sheraton. It's practically at the line. I think it's Isaac Doble who's just got it. I'm not sure. And then it's Andrew Pike who finishes 5th ahead of Adam Delmont, with then Jamie Dory coming across the line shortly there. Albeit Kieran Smart just out edges him for 7th. Ben Altria will come through shortly for what will be 9th place, as that was Thomas Delaney a lap down. Altria 9th, Sam Bradley 10th, and then we will have Benjamin Gregory heading to the line here in 11th, ahead of then Alan McCain. Lee Horn will then come to line in 13th place as they cross on through, with Lewis Mason alongside him for company. Phil McDougall, meanwhile, will be the driver who is going to be taking reverse grid pole for race number 2 because he finishes 15th in the Pram class. Cal Murray versus Ian Manners. It's going to be, I believe it's Ian Manners at the line. I'm not 100% sure. And then Sam Smith comes on through for 18th place. It'll then be Nigel Stock in 19th, just behind him, with Duncan Rise 20th in the end. And then we will have Dylan Hunter, who makes it to the checker flag there, 21st in his first ever race in the Ford Legends machine. And then last but not least, on the lead lap in 22nd, it's going to be Lewis Delmont, who went to the wet tyre in the end, but the rain didn't arrive in time for him to make the most of it, unfortunately. For Lewis Delmont then, it will be a 22nd place it'll look to work from race number 2 onwards. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, that was just race number 1. And we didn't get any replays of everything that happened, to be fair. There was so much going on. We stuck with all the live footage, but Nick Clemens makes his way into the pit lane. Your Victor Overall in Prime class. He'll be absolutely grinning from ear to ear of that one. And him and Stuart Winus working brilliantly together, to be fair to them, deciding to just break away, and in doing so, made the battle for victory all theirs over the course of the first race of the day. Isaac Doble was 3rd, ahead of Matthew Sheraton, who in the end just missed out. But what a fight between those two as well for the final spot on the podium. Andrew Pike made his one in. You can see they're celebrating a top 5 finish after a bit of a tricky qualifying session. Adam Delmont was 6th, Kieran Smart rounding off that podium after a dismal start to his race. What a recovery drive from the 39 drive for Track Scotland. And then Jamie Dory 8th, ahead of Ben Altria and Sam Bradley, with Bradley coming in and completing the top 10 just behind the pro driver. Not quite sure what happened to Lewis Delmont right towards the end there. Can we get a replay to explain what happened to Lewis Delmont? I'm not sure if we can. I think we might be able to. And here's a replay, ladies and gentlemen. This was lap number 9 for Lewis Delmont. I believe this may not have anything to do with what happened, to be fair to him, but he did have an off track coming through, bundle into Nelson, and he rolled out wide there. But can we actually understand what happened to him? And the answer is, I think he had to make his way into the pit lane. He went to the wet tyre. That explains it. So he decided to jump tyres for the hope of what was the rain coming at the right time, and in the end given an opportunity, but not to be. But as we come back to your live pictures, let's walk you through those race results, subject to any steward's inquiries. So after a frantic race number 1 of the day of round number 2 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, as brought to you on iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles, Nick Clemens was your race winner for iRacing Esports overall and in the Prime class. Well done to him on becoming our first Prime winner overall for the season. Track Scotland, Stuart Winus was your runner-up overall in Prime class as well. A fantastic effort from him to keep Nick Clemens honest every step of the way. And then Isaac Doble continued his run of podiums, and Brands Hatch for another 3rd place for Double Sim Racing. Matthew Sheraton just missed out on the podium, but still 4th place there, and in the end missing out by only 13 thousandths at the line, one of our closest finishes so far this season. He was at Aztec Racing, and behind the 390 driver, it was the 57 from the Sim Racing Collective Esports of Andrew Pike. 6th, it was Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green, ahead of Track Scotland's Kieran Smart, who recovered well to 3rd place in the Prime class. Jamie Dory was 8th for NXTGEN Racing, ahead of Ben Altria, with Jamie Dory in the end having some early spins that cost him dear, but Altria as well doing well to manage the battle between himself, Sam Bradley and Lewis Delmont. Speaking of Sam Bradley, he was behind the Full Tilt Motorsport driver, taking 10th place in NXTGEN Green. Best of the rest in the 11th was Benjamin Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport, ahead of Alan McCain, while the iRacing Esports driver there ended up fighting with Benjamin Gregory over most of the distance. Behind them was the pair of Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing and Aztec Racing's Lewis Mason. Their brilliant battle for 13. Unlucky for some, but fortunate for Lee Horn today. And Phil McDougall completed your overall top 15 for 6, our Project Black. And with that, the Pram driver has rewarded himself with reverse grid pole position for race number 2. Well done to him. Ian Manners in the end took 16th ahead of Cal Murray, with Sam Smith, Nigel Stock and Duncan Morais completing your top 20. And outside the top 20, let's not forget about them, Dylan Hunter and Lewis Delmont, who rounded off your lead lap of finishers. A lap down was both Jonathan Berry and Thomas Delaney. And last but not least, 2 laps down, but still at the checker flag as we saw him cross that line in the wonderful Horror Show machine. It was the 191 drive of Matthew Williams. So 25 starters, 25 finishers, of which 22 on the lead lap. Well, with that, ladies and gents, we've still got plenty more racing to come as the rain is definitely coming in full force here. A bit late on from the race, but we've got 2 more races to come. And could they be fraught with rain, or will they be dry once again? Well, we will have to wait and see, because coming up shortly will be race number 2 of 3 here at the Snetterton 200 circuit in round 2 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3. But until then, we're going to take a brief breather, and we will be back in about 7 to 8 minutes time for our second race of the day. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for race number 2 of round 2 of the Next Gen Racing Legends Cup Season 3, powered by Doble Motorcycles and brought to you on iRacing. We do apologise for the delay in getting race number 2 underway. There was a slight technical hitch which was discovered, and well, thankfully we've been able to restore everything back to normal. The technical hitch has been resolved, and with that it is business as usual. And well, speaking of business as usual, what a race number 1 we had. An absolutely phenomenal race number 1, which saw fantastic battles run from lights out to checker flag between our drivers, in the fact that we got to see some absolutely firm action between everybody up there, whereas right at the front of the field between Nick Lewins and Stuart Wynis, or alternatively much further down the field between the likes of, let's say, Sam Bradley, Ben Altrier, and also within that mix plenty other primes and pros. Indeed, everywhere we looked there was a fight, and with that, that's what makes the Legends so great, in the fact there's battles that just run from lights out all the way to checker flag. But maybe you may be asking, well, what exactly can we expect in race number 2? Well, notice one thing: the rain that started to creep its way onto the circuit in the final lap of race number 1, well, that rain has passed over the circuit. We've got a wet circuit once again, and I believe there is the risk of even more rain to come as the racing goes on in this second one, and therefore it is going to be a race which could all come down to be on the right tyre at the right time, whether it be from the start or the very end. But speaking of drivers being on the right tyre all the way to the very end, can we get a word with our drivers out there at the moment enjoying themselves? I think we might be able to. Unfortunately, I don't think we can get a word with our race winner from race number 1, nor can we get a word from our second place finisher in race number 1. But what we can do is try to get a word with some of our drivers who enjoyed some fighting further down the order, and I think here we're going to get a word from Ben Altrier as he makes his way on through. And as he does so, well, let's see if we can get a patch through to the car of Mr. Altrier as he makes his way down the start for this stretch. And well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, you got time for a quick word?
Yeah, sure, mate.
Ben, a race number 1 which saw you spend more time fighting with the primes rather than the pros, but I don't think you minded it. You pulled off a top 10 in the end, but how was race 1 for you?
It was a lot of fun. I'm just more interested in having good, clean racing with the lads than I am actually finishing anywhere impressive. So as long as I get some good racing, I don't mind who I'm fighting with.
Oh, loving the spirit there. And well, one question I've got to ask is, it's looking a much wetter circuit now compared to race number 1. The rain crept in right at the end, but now it's going to be a sodden circuit for race number 2. Is that going to make it easier or harder for you?
Good question. I'm not entirely sure. I was struggling during practice whilst it was still wet, but we managed to clear enough water that we were all on slicks by the time we got to quali. So with the rain that we've had between 1 and 2, it being wet, I think I'm probably going to be a little bit slower than I was before in comparison to everyone else.
Well, Ben, we'll leave you to it. We're a minute to go before we go racing. Good luck in the race and enjoy the conditions.
Thanks, mate.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Ben Altrier, our Full Tilt Motorsport 504 driver, and just out there to have fun. Doesn't matter where he finishes so long as he has a good race. I love that mentality, I'm not going to lie, as he does scoop his way over the apex of turn number 2 there, and just trying to manage those conditions as best he possibly can. Well, with that, as we do get ourselves set, well, one man who has had a flawless run to podium so far this season, he's had 4 in a row since the season opener, including 2 wins. It's Isaac Doble. 2 firsts, 2 thirds, but can he make it a second? Can he go for another win? Or will we see his hold on the podium places suddenly shaken away? Well, of course, he's got plenty to consider, including Matthew Sheraton, who's right behind him there. And I think after that brilliant battle in race number 1, well, can we see more of it in race number 2? But keep in mind, of course, it's a top 15 reverse grid, and the man who starts on pole for it will be Phil McDougall, who's not in the car at the moment, and I think very excited to be on pole position. Albeit there's always some nerves when it's your first reverse grid pole position in a Legends race. But how will he and all of our drivers get on? Well, we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for race number 2 here at the Snetterton 200 circuit. So the drivers make their way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up for our second race of the day. It is Phil McDougall then who lines up on pole position with the top 15 inversion. for CXR Project Black. He's joined on the front row by Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing. Behind the two primes, it's then the pro of Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing. They'll be hoping for a much more straightforward race number 2, but is life straightforward in the Legends? You can't count on it being so, and Alan McCain will be hoping the same there for iRacing Esports, who starts 4th. Benjamin Gregory lines up 5th for Full Tilt Motorsport ahead of Sam Bradley for NXTGEN Green, who enjoyed some brilliant battling in race number 1 of the day between himself and the Full Tilt Motorsport pair. And I say pair because right behind him is the man he squared off with towards the end of race 1. That's Ben Altria, who we heard from only moments ago. Jamie Dory lines up 8th, completing the full throw of the grid for NXTGEN Racing after a frustrating race number 1. He'll be looking to go forward from this point, as will Kieran Smart for Track Scotland, who did well to recover to a 3rd place finish in the Prime class, but can he make it another podium or make it even further up the Prime podium? Well, keeping him honest will be Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green, who lines up in 10th place. Well, the grid is already set, ladies and gentlemen. It's a quick procedure, so we're not going to be able to walk any further through the field. Unfortunate that, but still, what is fortunate, we've got plenty of lights. Oh, goodness me, that is a quick start there for Lee Horn. So Lee Horn has gone. That is going to be an invalidated start immediately, and well, I think the reason for it is in the fact everyone's gone on wets, but he's got on dries. So as they go green flag racing, all the lights have gone in the way we go. Lee Horn's bolted out the stables, and with that, what it means right now, he's going to be subject to a drive-through, and as the field comes on through or in towards turn 1 they go. Alan McCain and Phil McDowell side by side there, and McDowell does get elbowed out a little bit wide, carved backwards there. That is Duncan Rise, who's gone around as they come down in towards turn number 2, and as they roll the way through, it's back up the inside for McDowell. A lovely move there as the whole field now serpentines its way between the apexes of 2 and 3, recovering his morays in the rear of the picture, but as they roll them forward, oh goodness me, that's gone very wrong there for Nigel Stock. He's gone around, and Thomas Delaney's been picked up in that one again. That's heartbreak there for Delaney. Michael Lease also got caught up in that, Matthew Williams, but they're all trying to bring it together as they come down the Bentley straight and in towards turns 3 and 4, well, in fact 4 and 5 I should say. Well, there's a bit of side by side between Winus and Doble. Winus trying to go around the inside to outside here. You can see that dry line versus the wet line there, the pronounced darker patch of tarmac, and as they come in towards Bombhole now, we'll roll away for the right hander Isaac Dole back up the inside here as they're all trying to struggle around in the slick. Speaking of which, that is the car of Lewis Mason that's taken a trip to the outside of Bombhole and onto the grass, where he brings it back together. But as they make the way on through, well, I'm not quite sure why Lee Horn went as quickly as he did. I think he misanticipated the start, and well, your guess is as good as mine, Andy, in the YouTube chat. But as they roar the way out of the final quarter, well, Lee Horn is into the pit lane. That will be for the drive-through, but also it'll be to most likely switch the tyres over. But here they come then, and after one lap of racing, it's Ben Altria who leads as he goes on to lap number 2. Alan McCain is second ahead of Jamie Dory. Third is then going to be behind him Phil McDougall in 4th. Then we have Matthew Shepperton in 5th, Adam Delmont in 6th. He's battling side by side here. Is it 2 by 2 by 2 as they come on through the right under a turn number 1, and given how wet it is, you would be forgiven for thinking it was Noah's Ark, but no, Noah didn't put a set of legends on his Ark, or did he? Well, I'm not quite sure my Bible story is right now, but I can tell you one thing, this is going to be biblical here in terms of the battling conditions they go through, as it's a huge run deep there from the 2-1-2 of Alan McCain. He brings it back together, and oh no, it's all gone around there for Stuart Winus and indeed Kieran Smart, but it's going to be Alan McCain who's get biffed off the circuit there as he brings himself back on board. He tries to make sure everything calms down, he does so in the end, but Alan McCain on the receiving end of a domino effect in terms of cars coming together. And as they make the way down to the braking zone for Brundle Nelson, that's 3 wide. Actually, you don't go 3 wide here, surely. Well, they're going to survive it, and how Nick Clemens has gone between them as Stuart Winus goes around in the rear of the picture. Well, goodness me, Stuart Winus hasn't had it worked out, but for Nick Clemens, well, if Moses could part the season a legend, I think his name would be Nick Clemens. But what a move there from Clemens to take the 2 places through Brundle Nelson. And well, I'm going to put my religious references away before I end up having somebody complaining about them, but as they roar the way through Coram into Murray's Corner. Well, right now it's been an absolutely incredible open lap, and there's more to come as Matthew Sheraton runs deep there, and he brings it back together just in time as he cuts his way across the field of Adam Delmont and Sam Bradley. My goodness, you couldn't make this up as they're all struggling out there in these wet conditions, and into lead now goes Jamie Dory. Well, the maestro behind the Legends Cup as he roars his way into turn 1. He leads out of Ben Altria as they try to pull some time over Phil McDougall, who's still holding on to the lead of the Prime class in 3rd. But as they come down towards the hairpin this time, well, you can see they're all running out wide there, some more than others. That was Lewis Delmont taking the trip to trim the weeds, and as they come down to the braking zone, he's going to have the inside of Kieran Smart, who's going to go all in. Delmont decides to run all the way out, experiment what is the line out there, and then realising there's not really any grip available to him out there. Further back, we've got Ian Manners here fighting with the number 30 of Nigel Stock as the Crest Autosport driver here tries to hold on. That is Tom Delaney almost going around, albeit catched it. Nice catch there from Delaney, and as he brings it back together, well, further back, Isaac Doble and Sam Smith, they're still fighting, albeit they've both had a bit of a nightmare start to their race, and now got got to get themselves back up the order. Lee Horn is a bit further back behind this by 11 seconds after 7-inch drive-through penalty, and he is still on the dry tyre. So I believe it might have just been a completely misunderstood start there. And, well, in doing so, whether he's in a hurry or not, well, one thing, he's been in a hurry to get a drive-through penalty, but he served it now. And we're going from the back of the field all the way to the front of the field again. It's going to be a challenge, but right now the front of the field, Jamie Dory still holding on to that lead versus Ben Altria as they come around here for Kieran Bender. We look back from the rear of your race leader, and we'll lovely camera angle this because they can get very close to each other. Camera situated behind the driver. Oh, goodness me, and for Altria, it's a big snap loose there coming out of the final corner and sends him to the grass. He's able to point it back onto the tarmac gradually, but Altria there just pushing hard, and Jamie Dory now can make the break potentially. He's got a 1.4 second advantage. If he adds a couple more attempts, he will clear the toe, but as they come in towards turn one this time, all behind, it is a huge pack of Primes here. The top 4 of Primes all together. Clemens leads them ahead of Phil McDougall, followed by Bradley and Smart, and the only Prime amongst them is Adam Delmont in the fight for second through to 6th place, albeit Matthew Sheraton is on the back of this. He's in 7th, trying to go all the way around the outside. Well, that's going to be bold there from the Aztec Racing driver, but he's one for bold statements. We've seen that in the NXTCC, and good on him when he goes for these moves. He tries to do it for the cutback move there, coming through 3, and he almost gets it done, but not quite in the end. And now with the draft down the back straight, he's going to tuck back in here, as we can see. Smart and Bradley now start. Well, in fact, it's going to be Bradley and McDougall, I should say, swapping places there as Bradley's going to get ahead, but down the back stretch they go in towards that braking zone for Brundle, and now Shelton backs off there. 9-2 does not go into 1 there, unless your name is Nick Clemens, where you can make 3 into 1 happen. Was they roar the way out of the right-hander, with Shelton just watching and eagerly getting ready to pounce as they roll the way into bomb hole corner. But further back, we've had a bit of drama, I believe, for a couple of drivers all the way down in the battle outside the top 15, and this was only months ago for the likes of Cal Murray and Ben Altria. Now we get the replay here as they made the way out of turn 1 down towards 2. So this was Cal Murray initially, was he made his way into the braking zone here. What he said went wrong, came in a bit too hot, the rear of the car let go. Altria comes into the mix, and Murray taps him, sends him around. Oh no, that goes very wrong there. And then Lewis Mason also gets collected a little bit by Altria, albeit they're able to survive it all. And with the bumper guards on the front of the car, or the grill bars I should say, they are able to get away with some big shunts in these Legends machines. They're not that sensitive to damage, and therefore as they roar the way and through, well, there's still plenty more racing to come from them, albeit there has been a bit of drama. But speaking of drama, I think, oh, could this be what on earth's happening here? It's a mad scramble down the start for this straight. This is at the bottom end of your top 15, all the way down to 20th place, and that is Stuart Winus falling behind Murray and Delaney as they come through turn number 1 and in towards 2. And Winus right now looking to come back and through. We know he's got race winning pace in his Legend, given the fact he's put on some brilliant drives so far this season, particularly last time out in race number 1 of the day here at Snetterton. And as we roar the way in towards Wilson Hairpin, he's looking up the inside to the outside here versus Murray, and he'll get that done. Will Winus moving up another position, but as he makes way onwards, well, Benjamin Gregory meanwhile missing quite a few pieces of bodywork over the front engine cowling of the 113 for Full Tilt Motorsport as it makes its way on down towards turn number 4. Once again today, 3 wide there, Winus on the inside, Delaney on the outside, and it's going to be Gregory in the middle of the trio. A bit of a tap there, let's go send Delaney slightly onwards, but he does catch it back together, so Winus in the end does pick up 2 for the price of 1 pair of quarters, and roaring his way on out to turn number 6, in turn number 5 into 6 I should say. Well, it's going to be more progress there from Winus. He continues to cruise his way back up the field as quickly as he can, albeit it's going to become easier said than done. The higher he rises up the order, and he'll understand that more than most, as Cal Murray meanwhile right on the back here of Delaney as they roar the way through Corriman into Murray's. Onto the brakes they go as Winus goes very deep there, misses his braking point, and Delaney almost loses it as well, as Winus is going to go very sideways for a brief moment while they drag race their way along the start finish straight. Off camera you can't quite see Winus at the moment, so we'll look to the exterior views, and there you go, and you can see that 2 wide as they make their way across that timing line, completing the halfway distance of this race shortly, as that is Lewis Delmont taking a trip back off to the circuit from the grass. So what's happened to Lewis Delmont, I'm not quite sure, but he's had a very gradual trip back on. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can, but he falls behind all this, so Lewis Delmont once again, much like in race 1, has a great start to the race, makes a lot of progress, and suddenly ends up regressing right towards the end, as that's a tap on the rear of Delaney's car, and the 23 goes very, very sideways there, and Lewis Delmont, I believe, with that shunt to the back of Delaney, has had to tow to the pitch due to damage. Well, that's not quite worked out at all for the younger member of the Delmont family, as here's Alan McCain as well in the 212 trying to carry onwards. But looking back up into the top 10, well, there's still plenty more to come inside this top 10, as that is going to be Altria side by side with McDougall coming through the right-hander. Off the circuit goes Matthew Shepard Snetterton. It is all absolutely starting to kick off here, as we do see an observation from Andy Fox, which is saying dry tyres in the YouTube chat starting to come good now for Mr. Pike, as in Andrew Pike. And yes, that's a very good point. He's one of only 4 drivers out there on the dry compound. He's the lead in one of them, and the 57 driver who started off on this dry tyre, really having to try and keep it warm. Well, right now, I think he's going to start believing that with the circuit drying up, he might be able to go on the offensive, as that is Ultrim and Doble together. And well, they're both limping back up to speed, but have they been able to get back up to speed comfortably here? And the answer is yes, they have, as they make their way back on. And what on earth happened to them there? Well, thankfully, we have a replay that can explain. Now, this was coming around through Kieran Bend, and well, side by side, they ended up. Well, McDougall on the inside, and in the end, they just got pinched together there on, I think, McDougall trying to go for a late move under braking, and Ultrim not seeing it coming, so he went to turn as McDougall tried to go for the inside space into Murray's. Well, they got away with it, but I'm sure they'll have a couple of words afterwards, but I think you'll all be in good spirits there, because they're enjoying the racing, and just a little bit of misinterpretation. But we come back to your live racing, and as we do now into the second half of the race, as we do see, oh, is that rain? That's more rain, and well, we're talking about our dry runners Sunday coming on through. Well, Andrew Pike right now, he'll notice there's a rain. It's a brief shower of rain as well, so that's not going to change the complexion of the circuit too much. It's almost going to wind the circuit back a lap in terms of what is the condition or the state of the circuit. But Andrew Pike right now has got to believe that if he can keep the heat in the tyre, he can stay with his wet runners, as that's going to be Lewis Mason almost going sideways there. Well, as he does so, Lewis Mason catches it back together. In towards bomb hole they go. There's the rain again. So for Andrew Pike right now, this is going to be like driving on an ice rink at this point, because those dry tyres, for all the heat's pumping into them, the weather right now is trying to take all the heat out of them. But if he can keep that heat in there, and if we do see a bit more of a drier circuit towards the end, he could suddenly pick his way through. And remember, after this race, we do have the 19-lap feature race showdown, but there's more rain coming here out of Murray's Bend. I think then for Andrew Pike, oh, he's given in. He's thrown in the towel here and said, I can't get to the end on this dry compound. Well, he's giving it everything he can, but that's making its way down the pit lane, and that is going to be a frustrating end to this race. So Andrew Pike, he will go to the wet tyre, but it'll put him all the way to the back of the field. But of course, he finishes the race, and if he's at the back of the field, it puts him right towards the front for our final race of the day. And well, he can always take the consolation prize, which is a huge point scoring race number 3, albeit 3 races weighted equally on points. There is no favouritism over the races, and that is to keep things all fair and equal. I mean, you can't game the system. But as the drivers roar the way onwards here, they'll only be thinking really of race number 2 right now. They won't be thinking of race number 3 until they get to the end of this one. That's normally the way it goes. And speaking of the way things go here, that's 2 wide between Smart and Bradley as they come in towards Brundle. And in the end of the battle, the 2 prime drivers, it is going to be Smart who takes second place in prime for now. Sam Bradley right behind him, and then some going a bit sideways as he comes on out as we ride on board here. And one thing to notice as well, ladies and gentlemen, as we see Smart going very sideways there, and Bradley almost following him, is they have no wipers on their windscreens. That means that when it rains, they have to deal with the spray that's over the windshield, and they can't clear the water off the screen. They'll just have to wait for it to naturally drain away and clear, and that means that windscreen will mist up, as that's very sideways there for Nick, I believe that is Nick Clemens, and he gets it back together. And Sam Bradley, he picks his way through all the chaos and carnage around him, and Kieran Smart in the end, well, he does get it back together to Smart, but it almost went very, very wrong for all 3 drivers. But Sam Bradley takes the lead of prime as they make their way across the line. And as they do, they're now to 4 laps remaining. But my goodness, you couldn't make this up, as at the front of the field, Adam Delmont has picked his way past Jamie Dory and is now trying to run away in towards turn number 2. He's trying to break away this lead, and with a 3-second gap, Adam Delmont, I think, is going to get what he wants here at this point, unless he makes an error, because right now with Jamie Dory there, he's under pressure, and Sam Bradley, it's diagonal 3 wide coming out to Wilson onto turn 3, and Dory very sideways there coming out the corner with the rain that's fallen. They're all struggling out there right now. They roar the way down the back stretch, and as they do, Sam Bradley and Nick Clemens here, they're going to make it 3 wide. The 2 prime drivers want a piece of the pro, and as they roar the way onwards here in towards Brundle into Nelson, well, there is Delmont at the bottom of your picture. Adam Delmont just running off into the distance, and Nick Clemens will move up into second. Can Bradley make it in a third? Yes, he can, around the outside to the inside. Of course, this isn't going to be the end of the story unless Dory's got a problem with the car. I don't think he has. I think he's just struggling right now as they all are slipping and sliding the way around, and Dory onto the grass there as he tries to bring it back together. Jamie Dory really not happy with the conditions right now. He's on the wet tyre, but the car just not in a happy place here as he's trying to bring it together, and Kieran Smart is now closing Further back, we do have the full tilt motorsport driver of Benjamin Gregory, where he's been assisted by Ben Altria as they head into turn number 5. Through they go, these two trying to work together to push their way towards 10th place. Nigel Stock is the man who occupies that space for Crest Autosport. Good on Nigel, in fact, a brilliant race so far. Started 19th, up to 10th, and in 6th place in the Prime class here. I think he'll feel as though he should be rewarded a bit more for his efforts, but we've got plenty of Prime drivers here and a limited number of pros, and that means right now as a Prime driver, really every place comes at a premium, as they say. Well, as he comes down into Murray's, he'll know that as he roars his way onto another lap here, and in fact he's still got more work to do. And speaking of work to do, well, Lee Horn, the man who jumped the start and then so I think he had other places to be right at the start of the race, well, he's found his way back into the race, and he's fighting here with Sam Smith for 18th place as they come down. Smith in the iRace Esports number 27, Horn in the Next Gen Racing orange and light blue at 36, and as they head into the braking zone, Horn will scoop his way around the outside there and move into 18th, albeit Smith not giving up, putting up the fight, and well, these two enjoying the battling much like anybody else. And speaking of enjoying some battling, here comes Dylan Hunter as he makes way across the line, and as he does, side by side there versus Michael Lease. Lease missed round number 1, or missed race number 1 I should say, of today, but now enjoying a fight with Dylan Hunter. Two drivers who are not quite used to the Legends machine, more so used to the touring car machines, but with them both being NXTCC veterans, well, changing it up and saying a bit different as Lease just manages to get the car stopped, and Dylan Hunter goes around there, well, both of them making a ham sandwich out of Wilson Hairpin, and Thomas Delaney says, okay, I don't mind if I do, I'll take one off of you, and can I take the other as well? Well, Lease able to bring it back together, but Lease almost missed the corner, and Hunter in the end I think just getting a little bit too eager to turn it through the apex. Forgot to be very sensitive on the steering. And one thing the drivers were saying to me as we see Nigel Stock there has had a big off, and was he rejoins, that's going to demote him down to 12th place after running so nicely in 10th. Well, we sung his praise only moments ago, and perhaps we put the commentators cursed him prematurely, and I do apologise if so, but one of the things the drivers were telling me in the build up to today is the fact that when they're driving around here, given the fact the setup these cars have on them is made more for oval racing, driving down the straights, they've actually got to keep the steering wheel pointed slightly off-centre, anti-clockwise, aka to the left, in order to keep it straight. So therefore, they are constantly fighting with the steering wheel, even on the straights here. And that's before you've got any wet conditions. But as we can see now, Sam Bradley trying to keep Jamie Dory behind with only 2 laps to go in the fight for 3rd place overall. And Dory here right now, where it does look as though he's got things back together after his struggles, but Sam Bradley is now trying to get the upper hand of his rivals. They roar the way down the back straight. We ride aboard, looking back from the rear of the number 69 car, and as he powers his way along here with a 13 closing very quickly indeed. There's the draft, pick it up. Dory wants that outside line. He wants the inside of Nelson. You can understand. And well, Bradley here's going to give him the bare minimum room to coexist into the left-hander, but Dory backs off there, knowing there's some standing water on the outside of the corner, and therefore he can't stay all the way out. That was the car will go straight on. Speaking of going straight on, was that Duncan Rise I just saw take a trip to the grass? Yes, he rejoins on the right hand side of your screen in the Goldwing Motorsport 30 number 33, and as he roars his way back on, well, he is the best part of a lap down. So to be fair to the Goldwing Motorsport driver, stepping aside there, I think doing it as well just to enjoy what he's watching the lead lap runners make the way through. But then coming back here to a swap of places, that is Phil McDougall fighting with Ben Altria and trying to make his way into 9th place overall. And McDougall started on pole position for this race with the 15th place finish in race number 1, falling back a little bit further, but still holding on to 5th place in Prime at this time. And in front of him, the combination of Ben Altria and Isaac Doble. And well, this will bring Isaac Doble's run of podiums to a close. 5 races into the season, but to be fair, to start off the season with 4 podiums in 4 races is not a bad achievement, I can tell you that. But as we head on to the final lap, well, here's an achievement right now in the battle for 3rd place, and Jamie Dory does just squeeze his way back ahead of Sam Bradley, but Bradley right there with him as they head into the braking zone for turn number 2. On to the anchors they go, and through the right-hander. Will there be a change of position here? And the answer is no. Dory will still hold on to 3rd after making the move through Richard's corner, so roaring the way down the Bentley straight. Well, our leaders may have put some breathing room between each other, but right now the fight for 3rd is as fierce as it's ever been. And you can see Dory here holding that inside line as much as possible, practically driving to the standing water on the inside. He'll gradually cut across now as he'll force Bradley to take an outside to inside line here. Bradley, will he be brave to go all the way round? No, he won't. He'll feel the same as Dory on the previous lap, which is there's too much water out there to try and make that move happen. So now it's all going to come down to the last couple of corners and a drag race to line between them. But roaring the way through, we're looking to Nick Clibbins here, the 2nd place man, almost off the row. They're coming out bumhole corner. He catches it just in time and, well, doesn't want to lose out here. Will be back-to-back prime wins and back-to-back overall podiums. It won't quite be back-to-back overall wins as well, because as Adam Delmont makes his way into the final corner, well, it's looking very sketchy. It's looking very treacherous out there, but he's cleared the final corner. It's just a run-to line now, and for Adam Delmont, after a challenging race number 1, well, race number 2 is going to be much more straightforward, and Adam Delmont takes victory here in our second race of the day at Snetterton, ahead of Nick Clemens, your prime winner. Jamie Dory versus Sam Bradley. It goes to Ad Dory at the line, with Kieran Smart in holding on to 5th ahead of Matthew Sheraton by a comfortable margin. We did see that a lap down Duncan Rise finishing the race. He was 20th, and there'll be Sheraton here in 6th place ahead of Lewis Mason, who's 5 seconds back. Across the line there, Ian Manners 21st. Then there's Lewis Mason in 7th, and we will then see behind the 4th place Pro driver, the 4th place Pro driver, as this is going to be Ben Altria in 8th place ahead of Isaac Doble, and then it will be Stuart Winus who completes your top 10 overall ahead of Phil McDougall 11th, Benjamin Gregory in 12th place, and then we will have Nigel Stock heading towards the line here with Thomas Delaney 4 seconds back, albeit we can see Delaney under big pressure as they come to line. Michael Lees is challenging him here as they come through, but Delaney will take 8th in prime ahead of Lees. There'll be Andrew Pike followed up by Dylan Hunter very shortly. There is Pike making his way across line 16th off that tyre gamble, didn't work out. Dylan Hunter takes the final top 10 spot in Pro-Am. And then we've still got a couple more drives still to make it to the end of the race, ladies and gents, but they're almost all there. Here comes a very drifty Lee Horn as he makes way through. He'll be 18th place when all is said and done. I'll be curious to get a word from him in the build-up to race number 3. What happened at the start of race number 2, because he was very eager on the throttle pedal. He went even before the lights went halfway through. Well, Horn crossed the line there in 18th place. Then we've got Sam Smith still to finish his race. He'll make his way down that start-finish straight then in 19th when all is said and done, and he will be your last lead lap finisher there. He'll be taking 11th from the prime class with it. But as he crosses the line, well, we look to Adam Delmont, who makes his way into the pit lane very shortly. Well, and very happy Adam Delmont there. A little bit of sideways motion as he makes his way through. Also, I can see there Nick Clemens celebrating another prime win. And Adam Delmont doing the same here to sign do some victory donuts there. Who can blame them? They're enjoying themselves. And, well, with Adam Delmont doing some there, and then Nick Clemens having some fun. We've also got to try it out on the grass there. I believe that's Nigel Stock, who's also decided to do some rallycross donuts. Well, they're all having a great time out there. You can tell everyone's enjoying themselves in these Legends Cup machines. In fact, they are absolutely crazy, no doubt about it. But that brings our second race of the day to a close. And as it does, we'll hear some of our other tries towards the bottom end of the top 10 or just outside of it coming on in, including Benjamin Gregory there. Unfortunate to miss out on the top 10, but had a great scrap between himself and Phil McDougall right at the close. And, well, Nigel Stock just behind him when all was said and done. Also, Thomas Delaney, a special mention too, started 23rd on the grid, a 14th place finish. A great try from him in the SVR Motorsports machine. But as they all coming through, and Lee Horn there getting a little bit lost on the way back to the pit lane. Well, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. And here they are for our second race at the Snetterton 200 circuit for round number 2 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, as quite poetically the rain decides to fall once again on the circuit. Well, if a race that was played with a degree of rain, Adam Delmont taking victory there for NXTGEN Green, his first win of the day, ahead of iRacing Esports' Nick Clemens, who makes it back-to-back overall podiums, and with it back-to-back prime wins. Well done to the 13 driver. From the 013 to the number 13, Jamie Dory there for NXTGEN Racing, rounded off the podium, with Sam Bradley fighting him hard, and in the end only 400 separating the two, if not less than that. But the NXTGEN Green driver just missing out on overall podium, but we're still happy to take the runner-up spot in the prime field. Kieran Smart fought his way through to take 3rd place in the Pram class. Congratulations to Track Scotland driver, who also rounded off the overall top 5. There's Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Race, who just finished ahead of his teammate Lewis Mason, 6th and 7th for them. Ben Altria was 8th for Full Tilt Motorsport, ahead of Isaac Dole for Doble Sim Racing. A good battle between the two of them, all the way to the line. And Stuart Winus rounded off your top 10 there with a 5th place in the Pram class. Behind the Track Scotland driver, best to rest in the length was Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black, with Benjamin Gregory 12th for Full Tilt Motorsport ahead of Nigel Stock, and then from the Crest Autosport driver, it was Thomas Delaney and Michael Lees who completed your overall top 15. From the JW Motorsport 55, it was Andrew Pike just behind him 16th, with the gamble on the dry tyres working out early on in the race, but not working out when the rain rematerialised. He'll be gutted about that, but still a gamble that was worth it in every measure. Dylan Hunter was 17th ahead of Lee Horn, and then Sam Smith and Duncan Rise completed your top 20, with Duncan Rise being the first driver to finish a lap down or more. Coming on to the remainder of the field, it was also a lap down for Ian Manners, Alan McCain and Matthew Williams, and we unfortunately did have 2 retirements in the race. Lewis Delmont with that shunt into the Wilson hairpin, and Callum Murray retiring around the same time as well, 7 laps on the finish. So 2 non-finishers out of our 25 starters, ladies and gentlemen, but we did have 23 finishers, of which we had 19 of them on the lead lap. Now, of course, that's race number 2, the second of our sprint races, but we still got one more race to come. And when we come back for our final race of the day, we are in for a 19-lap thriller, because it will be our feature race, ladies and gentlemen, here at Snetterton. A full reverse grid as well. And who will come away victorious for the third and final time today? Well, we will find out in approximately 7 to 8 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. We will see you very shortly. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, for one final time tonight for race 3 of 3 in round 2 of season 3 of the Next Gen Racing Legends Cup, as brought to you on iRacing, powered by Doble Motorcycles. And well, the rain came back in race number 2, and it seems though it's here to stay because the heavens have opened and it's a deluge over the Snetterton 200 circuit at the moment. And well, I can imagine everyone right now will be looking at the wet tyre compound here and thinking, okay, I've got to get to grips with it in full fashion as quickly as possible. But what a race number 2 we had, in the fact we had a few drivers gamble on running on the dry tyre with the hope the circuit would dry up enough for the dry tyre to come into its own. And Andrew Pike was the #1 candidate for it, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out, as we do see said man driving away around in the 57 at the moment as he makes his way out of Murray's corner. As he does so, with the rain coming on very thick and fast, and therefore visibility also being quite poor here, well, this is going to be a final race of the day where 19 laps is going to be just as much a test about surviving the race distance as it is going to be about getting all those laps under your board and being the race winner. But we will see what our drivers can do here as they make the way on around a big slide there for Ben Altria, and I think it's going to be a question of who can tiptoe their way around at the moment, given how treacherous these conditions are. But funny enough, we haven't seen a safety car as of yet so far today. Will we see a safety car in race number 3? And we may do, depending on what happens. But I have to see that as Altria makes his way all the way out into the grass, and well, he'll rejoin from the grass in due course there, and almost into the farmers' fields, in fact. But as he does so, well, we do look to Nigel Stock as he makes his way on along down the Bentley straight there. And well, I think a number of drivers who may not be as confident in the car in terms of pushing the car, but might just tiptoe around, he could feel a little bit more confident. Indeed, many of our drivers could feel a bit more confident here. They may be able to sneak away with a good result by just not getting things wrong. And sometimes just being the guy who doesn't have the car spin around in the wet can be just as potent as being the fastest guy but driving on the edge all the time. Well, we would get a word from some of our drivers here. However, we're not going to, because I think they all need the time to get their heads down and focus on driving in these treacherous conditions. Otherwise, we'd love to grab a word from one or two of them, albeit we'll have to wait and see how they all get on. But as we do see there, the comment in the YouTube chat from Welshboy2012 saying the weather reminds me of where I grew up in North Wales. And well, I can imagine there, depending on where you are in the United Kingdom, particularly in the north of Wales, can be some very challenging conditions at certain times, at least from my friends who are based up that way. And well, as our drivers all get set then for the final time today with 1.5 minutes left on the clock. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know who you're cheering on in YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch chats, because this is going to be a race where it is all going to be about surviving the race distance. And we've got plenty of time in this race. We will be seeing 19 laps or 35 minutes of racing, whichever expires first. We normally expect the laps to be completed unless we do have multiple safety cars or a red flag or the race pace falls off, and we will expect the pace to dip quite significantly. To put it in context, in qualifying we saw the lap times being the 1:21. Here so far we are seeing the fastest times being the 1:34, so we are running 13 seconds or so off of the optimum dry pace. And as they roll the way around, we say hello to SW61 who says it's raining again. And indeed it is. The rain has returned, and well, now it's going to be absolutely crazy. To give you an idea of what this looks like from on board with one of the drivers, here we're on board with Adam Delmont as he makes his way on down the Bentley straight, and look at the visibility. I mean, this is from over the driver's shoulder perspective, not through their visor, with no windscreen wiper there, and also what is quite thick rain and also low cloud. Well, for the 37 driver here, visibility is not going to be helpful. That's before you factor in any spray off a car in front, as Delmont goes very sideways there through Brundle into Nelson. Well, that's what they're going to be doing when they're at full speed through there. They're practically going to be drifting their way around the circuit. Well, right now, it is going to be one of those questions of who's going to be the drift master just as much as the outright legend master, because, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for legends to be made as we head to the grid for our final race of the day. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up then for our final race of the day. It's the 19-lap full reverse grid race. Matthew Williams lines up on pole position there for Cymru Motorsport. The Welshman there will be happy with that pole position start, and he'll be in the company of Alan McCain for iRacing Esports. From an all Pro-Am front row, it'll then be a pair of prams on row number 2, with Ian Manners for the privateer outfit in the 52, line up in third, ahead of Duncan Rise, who starts full for Douglas Motorsport. Sam Smith lines up fifth for iRacing Esports, ahead of Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing. We then do have Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports in 7th on the grid, ahead of Michael Lees for JWM Motorsport, who begins this race in 8th. Completing your top 10 will be the pairing of Thomas Delaney and Nigel Stock for Crest Autosport, and then behind them on the grid it is going to be at row at number 6, Benjamin Gregory and Phil McDougall. Stuart Wireless and Isaac Doble line up on row 7 ahead of Ben Altrier and Lewis Mason, with Matthew Sheraton and Kieran Smart, Sam Bradley and Jamie Dory complete your top 20, and then there's the remainder of the grid, ladies and gentlemen, as it is going to be a quick fire run on in, because we are going straight into the race, and then no holding the lights as such. The lights go on then for the final time today, and as they do, it is going to be 5 red lights. And away we go as Matthew Williams amongst many takes a very tepid start down towards turn number 1. But as he does so, Alan McCain not as timid, and as they roar the way down towards the opening corner, it's going to be Legends of Plenty, no headlights on. It's all about survival here as they roar the way through that opening curve. There's the blimp camera, we can't see a thing, so we're not going to use the blimp. And as they roar the way out of turn number 1, down towards turn 2, well, as they head in towards that braking over the hairpin. Now this is going to be the first test here. Who's going to get it right under braking? Who's not? Well, it looks as though McCain right now goes a bit deep. Williams gets a nice tight line. Horn, Manners and Pike all together there as they make the way through. The whole field has safely made it through the opening couple of corners. Well done to everyone for doing so. They're doing absolutely brilliantly in these treacherous conditions, and now things will start to open up here as they power their way down the Bentley Straight. But roaring the way on through, well, we do have 3 wide. Oh my goodness, is that Jamie Dory going around? Yes, it is. The car spins one way, then the other. Everybody able to avoid Jamie Dory, who's end up in early drama there. We'll have to try and get a replay of what's happened to Jamie Dory, but he brings it back together. Meanwhile, the field all comes down into Brundle, into Nelson, and Matthew Williams is back ahead as Alan McCain has fallen a long way off the circuit. There's McCain in the rear of the picture. He took to the grass there. I'm not quite sure what's happened to McCain, but he does rejoin, and it's a nightmare moment for Alan McCain. As drivers push on now, well, as they do, well, Matthew Williams still leading. Ian Manners, meanwhile, bunches everyone up behind in second place as they roar the way through Coram and down towards Murray's they go. But onto the brakes, and Andrew Pike now looking up the inside here. Also, we can see there, that's a very late run of the brakes there for the 55 Elise, and that's going to force Manners out wide. In fact, he does get tapped there, and as he rejoins, well, he rejoins now down in 8th place as Thomas Delaney says, I'm going to come through, don't mind you. Well, as they roar the way to the end of lap number 1, it's Williams who leads ahead of Andrew Pike, followed by Lease, then Horn, then Moraes, then Gregory, followed by Delaney, Manners, Isaac Doble and Sheraton complete your top 10. But into turn 1 they go once again, and as they do, this whole field right now bustling as everybody looking to try and get some heat in the tyres, and with that heat in the tyres, looking to try and turn the pace up a notch as they roar the way out of Richards Bend once again. Well, down towards turn number 2 they go, and in the distant camera view, the number 65 there, Isaac Doble going as defensive as possible versus Matthew Sheraton. These two have actually been glued to each other all race distance over the 3 races and enjoying the battling, no doubt about it. As you can see, Manners there now falling back into line, with Delaney having a really good run of this race so far, making progress in the 555 car. Good on him as he chased down Benjamin Gregory, but roaring their way up towards Brundle to Nelson. Well, Manners is going to pull one way, Delaney the other, 3 wide of the foreground of the camera shot, and that's going to be Michael Lees, Pike and Williams. They go 3 wide through Brundle into Nelson. Do they all survive it? Yes, they do. Albeit for Matthew Williams, he just steps wide there, front left tyre onto the grass, and then he rejoins. That's going to catapult him all the way down the order. Matthew Williams was doing so well there to survive the conditions, to survive the free ride and take the pressure of being race leader, and in the end he's done a brilliant rejoin there, falling back into 10th place. But right now he'll know that he's got to try and make his progress upwards now rather than hold on. Well, speaking of hold on now, Michael Lees has the difficult task of trying to hold on to the race lead as they roar the way through the final corner. He runs out very wide there, practically running onto a swimming pool of an exit curb, and that is going to be Andrew Pike now who takes the lead, and Pike is starting to get himself together here as they make the way down the start finish stretch. But as they do, oh goodness me, that was very close to all there for Michael Lees. He brings himself back together. They all come across, and as we can see, it's 1 by 1 and it's 3 by 2 as they charge away onwards. I'm not talking about football formations here, I'm talking about packs of legends as they roar the way into turn number 1, albeit it's very easy to make a mistake here given how close they're all running together. Further back, Callum Murray and Nick Clemens making the way 2 wide into the opening corner, and in the end Clemens does get clear as Kieran Smart now tucks in alongside, and Murray runs a little bit wide. The car gets caught there, and as he does catch it on the grass, well, he'll rejoin. That's going to put him all the way down the order, and that's going to be a frustrating moment there for Callum Murray, who was doing well, but now he falls all the way out of the fighting. As we do say hello to Janie Hagner there, who talking about what is the strength for the field, because he'd love to be on the grid. Well, I can't quite get you that statistic at the moment, but what we can do is keep the racing up here as Isaac Doble looks to battle with Thomas Delaney, well, as they make the way onwards here with the top 4 now starting to break away. 1.5 second gap to between Duncan Moraes and Isaac Doble. Well, in fact, no, I should correct myself there. The top 3 is breaking away because it is Isaac Doble versus Duncan Moraes. In fact, no, I was right the first time. Top 4 as I get myself confused over my own wording. And right now, Moraes is 1.4 seconds clear of Isaac Doble, who is in 5th, with Thomas Delaney right behind him. And well, as soon as I say that, Duncan Moraes has ejected himself stage right there. And also, who's that? that on the grass? Trying to see who that is. Is that one of the full tilt we most watch? They're all going round. Matthew Williams has just injected himself out stage right as well. They're all taking the trip to the weeds, and that, I believe, is Ben Altria, who's a lap down now effectively. Well, he's made his way onto the inside of Coram Corner, and Bombhole absolutely catching everybody out. As all tries to make the way onwards. Well, right now, Adam Delmont knows to tell with Matthew Shepperton here as they roar the way onwards with Isaac Doble also in the mix here. Coming across that line once again, it's absolute pandemonium as they roar the way onto another lap. And, well, as they do, brilliant racing for everyone so far. The fact it's close, it's absolutely nip and tuck, albeit I think for some drivers it's got a bit wrong. But as for Adam Delmont, he's trying to battle with Isaac Doble, trying to go around the outside. There's Thomas Delaney just rotches on. We ride on board here with your 6th place driver as he makes his way into the braking zone. And as he does, looking around the outside here, that's a big slide from Adam Delmont there, more sideways than straight as he comes through the hairpin. That's not how you normally do a hairpin, but Thomas Delaney here fighting with the steering wheel. Good on him as he does so, gets his head down in, pushing the car forward, and as they roar their way onwards, we're right now side by side with Adam Delmont and Thomas Delaney there, simply just hammering the throttle and saying, right, I'm going to commit to the apex to turn number 3. Isaac Doble comes him off here as they make the way down. Under the bridge they go, that bridge being used to get cars to and from the inside of the circuit, and as they make the way through left into right, free wide they go under braking, but in the end it'll be Adam Delmont all the way around the outside after the big slide that costed the place. He gets them all back. Thomas Lane up into 5th and Isaac Doble they're falling back to 6th, but I think for the number 65 driver and the overall championship leader coming into tonight, he's playing the smart game here as Isaac Doble because he knows. And then given the fact the way the races have gone so far, he could potentially pull off a big victory later on in this race if he just simply keeps to his guns. But as they roll the way through, we need to take a look back at some of the incidents earlier on today. And we begin on lap number 1 with the incident for Kieran Smart and Jamie Dorey. Well, this was Kieran Smart making his way down the Bentley Straight. And you're going to see very shortly it go all wrong for Jamie Dorey and snaps one way then the other. Kieran Smart having to take evasive action as Dorey got it all turned around there. But what exactly sent Jamie Dorey on his what is his journey is the question. Well, here we go for a replay, and it was coming out of turn number 3. Battling side by side there with Matthew Shepperton in the turn. Ben Altria. Altria covers one way, and I think by touching the grass here, Dorey's going to come across, and as he does so, the grip's not there. And in the end, Dorey, well, how he managed to hold that without coming across the road, that's absolutely incredible from Jamie Dorey. But in the end, an absolute surprise and not a welcome one to be sure. We did see a little bit later on lap number 2. This is what happened to Ben Altria, who was at the time, goodness me, we're trying to see where that is. That's on the back stretch. Well, that just came loose of its own accord, I think. So for Ben Altria having a bit of a moment with the weeds and everything between. And then only a few laps later, we did see this for Phil McDougall on lap number 3. And this was battling side by side with the 191 of Matthew Williams coming through Coram Bend into was Murray's, and as he did, just taking a complete excursion there, and Matthew Williams, I believe, also following him off the road. So that explains the story between them. But let's come back to your live at racing. And as we do, well, there's still plenty more racing time to go here. And, well, speaking of which, Isaac Doble still trying to keep Delaney and Shepperton behind as these two absolutely enjoy themselves. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sat here right now in the same booth as our race director, and they're absolutely enjoying themselves in the commentary booth, albeit they're keeping an eye out for the deployment of the safety car. But meanwhile, as all this racing goes on, despite the inclement conditions, or as described by Mark Kent, saying there, good grief, this is wetter than Bognor Regis Beach. Oh, goodness me, I remember the last time I went to Bognor Regis Beach. It was not a dry day, I can tell you that. But right now, they're doing incredibly well out there as they roar the way down the start-finish straight. And as they do, well, it is going to be close there, as that's going to be side-by-side between Clemens and Gregory as they come across the line. But in the foreground, Doble and Delaney too wide, with Shepperton just behind them. And then it's going to be the 3 wide here, and that is going to be Benjamin Gregory just clearing it with the 113 as they come through the long right-hander of Riches, and down they go. But then coming back to the front of the field in terms of the fight for 5th, well, that's going to be Thomas Delaney, who just misses his braking point, albeit he gets the car caught in time. Does the prime driver? Oh, goodness me, who's that going off into the distance? That's Nick Clemens. You can't go there. He's gone way too deep into the corner. Well, he brings himself back together. That's going to put him all the way down the order, but that'll bring him into close company of his teammate from iRacing Esports, of Alan McCain. So they bring themselves back onto the circuit, and as they make the way down the Bentley Straight, well, they'll be regrouping, they'll be recuperating, and I think they'll be thinking, you know what, we can now work together as teammates. But from then, the 2 teammates who've met up to right now the battle that's absolutely brilliant. This is Bradley versus Gregory, and Gregory gets back ahead there as Bradley just tucks him behind and decides, I don't want to fight this anymore. And I think just playing the smart move as he comes through Brundle into Nelson. We're roaring the way on through and looking back to the front of the field, because we haven't really talked about these two for some time. They have opened up a 1.8 second advantage to Michael Lees. It's Andrew Pike who leads this race for the Sim Racing Collective ahead of Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing. And for a left-hander they go as Pike there experiments well wide entry line. Now, some of you may be sat there wondering, why exactly is he doing this? Well, keep in mind, in the dry conditions, you have a natural racing line. There is one way to attack the circuit, but in the wet, the racing line suddenly isn't always the optimum line because, yes, in theory, it's the fastest way around the circuit, but it's not the fastest if you find pools of water. So I think Pike, they're experimenting with how wide he can go at Murray's in order to get more speed coming onto the centre straight, as behind Adam Delmont swapping places, with Michael Lease now up into third place, but Lease is following him on through Rich's corner, and therefore I think some of these drivers right now just trying to experiment with where the drier parts of the circuit are, if there's any dry parts, or where the puddles are not, we should say, as Michael Lease there does a Nick Clearins and goes straight on, but he brings himself back together, and as he does so, we'll lose the leaders to the best part of a tune of 1.9 seconds, but I think Lease is your prime leader right now. He'll be happy to hold on to that lead as well, but as they roar the way onwards, and we do look a little bit further back down the order to Sam Bradley. Well, he's got Kieran Smart for close company here, and Bradley, I believe, always fighting with Benjamin Gregory. Smart has just been able to run up behind the two of them, albeit Smart's going to look around the outside of the pair here, as this is going to be free wide down into the Brundle to Nelson complex. Onwards they go, and it's going to be Bradley there who falls behind the pair. He decides not to fight it, backs off. Smart, meanwhile, trying to go outside to inside, and Gregory says, I see what you're trying to do, and I'm going to make it impossible for you, as they come out of the corner, now in towards the bomb hole. But side by side, they still go here. And Smart now up the inside into bomb hole corner, and the number 39 driver there gets it nicely glued onto the apex and absolutely pinched it perfectly as he moves up into 9th place. But as he makes his way into Coram Bend, well, there's still a long way to go in this race. We do see an excursion. There is that pedal trio taking another excursion across the grass before rejoining at the exit of Murray. Yes, it is. So for Altria, it does seem as though right now the number 504 just not having a happy day here as he tries to bring it together. But still credit for him for trying, and that's what it's all about, experimenting these conditions. Was they roar the way across the timeline. That was Delaney and Doble close together, and in fact we might be able to see the ending of this battle here, as Doble's going to be on the inside of Delaney into Rich's Bend, and Thomas Delaney, who had an absolutely dismal race number 1 and improved race number 2, well, right now he's having a very fun race number 3. I think Thomas Delaney might be enjoying these very wet conditions. I think he's found his niche in these Legends machines, which is the wetter it is, the better he is, and to be fair, that's not to besmirch his reputation. If anything, right now, being a bit of a rainmeister in these cars could be helpful, given the fact that the weather in the United Kingdom is absolutely unpredictable, and we do the weather based on the real-life weather conditions going into the race day. Well, as they come down the back straight here, side by side goes with Doble once again, and Isaac Doble is still trying to pick up the pieces here. He's not quite been able to make his way forward over this race distance, and in fact, if anything, he's been held to a 7th place fight with Thomas Delaney. I think he's enjoyed it, but I think also reflects he'd be liking to move a bit further forward and clear Delaney, but Delaney has got other ideas as they make the way out of the right-hander. But towards bomb hole they go, and as they do, we've had a bit of an instant for Phil McDougall. Oh, goodness me, he's parked up there, and I think that car's had to be towed to the pits. What's happened to Phil McDougall? And here's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. It was only moments ago, and under braking into Wilson. The rear of the car's gone around. He's caught it once. So what's then gone wrong? Coming into turn number 3, and it's gone the other way. Oh, goodness me. For the CXR Project Black driver, I think that was the proverbial camel, the straw that broke the camel's back in the end, just not quite able to get it back together. And I can imagine with that, it might be a trip to the pits, and it might be a retirement in due course. But we'll have to wait and see there as we come on to lap number 9 of 19. Still more laps to come here as the drivers continue their way around. And as they do, well, Pike versus Horn is right at the front of the field. And these two now very close together as we look back for the rear of your race leader. Was the Sim Racing Collective Esports number 57, tries to hold on for its first win of the season. Lee Horn also trying to do the same. Missed a jump start from race number 2, although we didn't quite get the scoop as to what happened there right at the start of race 2 as to why he went so early. As they roar the way down the back straight, we can see there the gap was half a second as they exited turn 3, but it's not going to be that by the time they get to turn number 4, and into the braking zone they go then for Brundle, and as they do, well, Horn backs off there. Pike fighting at the steering wheel a little bit. You can see the wobble in the camera there, a sign of the wobble on entry into the corner, and subsequently the exit rolling into the Nelson complex. But as they come out of the corner into bomb hole, I think both drivers here just trying to find where they can get a little bit more grip, because there's no rain falling at the moment by the looks of things, unless I'm mistaken, but there's so much water out there right now that it's very hard to clear it. These wet tyres, they will have tread blocks, they will be able to clear the water to a degree, but not to the point we're going to be seeing dry tyres coming out at any point in this race, unless by miraculous nature the weather sunlit. Well, in fact, the cloud sunny part, and we see the sun come through, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But what is going to happen soon is that Lee Horn's going to have a run here on Andrew Pike going on to lap number 10, so they will make it to the halfway point of this race, and as they do, well, it's going to be side by side across the timeline. Adam Delmont is only 1.2 seconds behind, so Horn here fighting with Pike. This is going to bring Delmont into into the mix, and it's suddenly going to cause the top three to close up. Well, too wide they go for Rich's Bend. Horn trying to carry all the speed round. Bennion has to bleed off a little bit, knowing that outside line. It's not going to be favourable if he goes to the exit curve. Brilliant side by side between them. Andrew Pike rejoins the lead, but look at Adam Delmont, who's suddenly halved the gap there through the fighting into one corner. Goes a little bit too eagerly into the break-ins over turn number 2, but I think he's happy there to see some company, and now he'll be onto the back of that top 3 fight as Michael Lease, meanwhile, well, he makes his way out to turn number 3, and he'll know that he started to close on those leaders to a degree on a lap. There was a 133 last time around, but I suspect the leaders will be doing 133s if not 134s come the end of this lap, given how much they've been fighting, but he's got the growing presence of Matthew Shepperton behind. He's got to be careful of that. But looking back to Nick Clemens, the man who was inside the top 10 until a spin coming out to turn at number 2, cost him very dear. Well, he's going to try and pick his way past Benjamin Gregory here as they make the way down in towards Brundle. But as they do, will he be ahead? Will he not? And the answer is going to be, I think from that camera shot, yes, he has got ahead. And the transponder from the car says he's got ahead as well. So Benjamin Gregory tucks in behind here. And that's the fight for 11th that does calm down for a brief moment. But I think everyone now trying to mutually work together here to an advantage, which is to try and get the field to bunch back up. And really right now, as much as they could fight each other, the problem is if you fight at this point, all you're doing is relegating yourself further and further away from the places further up the road. So you all want to try and work together as much as humanly possible, and that's why the fight between Isaac Doe, Kieran Smart and Thomas Delaney has calmed down to a degree. Although saying that, Delaney was ahead only moments ago of Smart. Now Smart's got ahead of him. Isaac Doe was going to go a little bit deep coming out of turn number 8, and as the engines roar up to their maximum RPMs, well, now Isaac Doe is going to have the company of Smart making his way down at the start for this straight. Onwards they go though to lap number 11, and Kieran Smart will move up into 7th place, but I can imagine this is going to be a swap back and forth as Isaac Doe is going to look up the inside here into turn number 1. Free wide they go. In fact, Thomas Delaney's there, and as they come on in, well, Thomas Delaney right now is frying the whole script of working together in the bin, and as they make the way now, oh no, it's all gone wrong. This sparks fly, and that's going to be Thomas Delaney ejected out to the side of the road, albeit he will gradually rejoin, but it's not going to be a rejoin that he's going to be too happy about, because he's going to fall all the way back, and he goes straight on there with regards to dirty tyres and a lot of water out on circuit. But free wide, it didn't quite work out, but Sam Bradley now comes into the mix and says, could I play? As does Nick Clemens. So those two have been working together, and they suddenly muscle their way into this fight, and Kieran Smart falls on down. Isaac Doe does clear this as a result of all the chaos, but goodness me, what a moment then for Thomas Delaney, very well held to keep it back onto the circuit. In fact, that could have gone very far off into the fields. Indeed, he could have been in the wheat harvest, but as they make the way through left into right, onto the brakes they go. Well, here comes Smart now onto the inside of Nelson versus Bradley, gets back ahead, and Sam Bradley at this point I think will be thinking, you know what, why can't we just work together? And I think Kieran Smart's got a very different approach as they roar the way through, and well, coming up to the next braking zone, well, here they go in towards Cora Bend, rolling the way for the right-hander, and as they do, let's get a replay to take a look back at that moment between Isaac Doe and Thomas Delaney and Kieran Smart. Now here it was heading in towards turn number 1. Can we get a close-up view here with other cameras? We haven't got too many cameras out there today. Well, free wide they went into the corner. Delaney up the inside, and in the end Smart cut back here. But as they made the way through, well, it was Smart and Delaney who had the tap between them. Delaney was ejected out, and well, Smart then just drifted in slightly across, and it was so close between them all. I mean, if we take it on board from the car of Thomas Delaney, well, this is what you're going to see, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas Delaney here, eager to make an impression. Now listen to this. And going all in there. You could hear the tyres screeching as he tried to get to a stop, and as he makes way out, just that tap there, and a bigger tap from what was his rival, the Prime Class, and Kieran Smart, and the sending Thomas Delaney out wide, but brilliant fighting between them, and again, to bring it back onto the circuit here, and to get it stopped without it going around or going to the grass. I mean, Thomas Delaney today deserves a medal just for keeping that all together, and well, I can think there from Matthew Williams, or MW Sim Racing 191, who it's been unfortunate for him. Race number 3 hasn't quite got his way, and Matthew, I'm sorry to see how it all went wrong in the early stage of the race day. But glad to see you out there enjoying the battle at the front of the field, and also well held to that free wide through Brundle into Nelson. Credit where it's due to you. And indeed, I think a lot of drivers here right now getting their race heads on more than their common sense heads, where they could perhaps work together. Instead, they're opting to fight. But I think for a lot of these drivers as well, they're just out there to have an absolute laugh with regards to the battling, and well, get themselves familiar, and also try to conquer absolutely treacherous conditions as they roar the way onwards. But as we look back to our leaders here in the live pictures now onto lap number 13, They've still got 7 laps to go here at a very wet and windy Snetterton. We're roaring the way down in towards turn number 1, and it's Delmont, Pike and Horn, as in Adam Delmont, who leads the way ahead of Andrew Pike and Lee Horn. But right now they're close together. Oh, goodness me, Lee Horn's gone out to the grass there. We had him in the camera shot for a brief moment, and then suddenly he's made his way on through, and that's going to be Matthew Sheraton now who picks up the pieces, as does Jamie Dory. Well, how about this for a turnaround? Jamie Dory, who was in that huge spin down the back straight on the opening lap. Well, now he's suddenly up here as Michael Lee goes sideways around the outside of Dory. Lee Horn rejoins across the grass there. You'd think it was a rallycross track here, given the way they're driving. I think, again, they're all trying to absolutely push themselves to the limit here, and they're finding the limit, and then even more than that. But from them, we look back to leaders, and this is Delmont and Pike, who have started to fight again through Brundle into Nelson. Neither one of them wants to give way to the other here in terms of playing the game of follow the leader. I think both want to very eagerly fight each other, but we'll see exactly how that goes between them as they roar the way around. But still more to come before all is said and done. And as they do, well, you can imagine right now for these drivers, it is all going to be head down and push on as much as they possibly can, albeit roaring the way towards the next corners. And further back, we do see Benjamin Gregg and Stuart Wine is here as well, nose to tail, as they head left into right. Onto the brakes they go on at this point as well. The wet tyres, well, these tyres definitely will still have plenty of life in them, albeit you can imagine that our drivers at this point in time, if they're not fully comfortable with the tyres, they're now going to be battling against the elements and the tyres all the way to the very end of the race. And the wet compound, a very different compound to drive on versus the dry tyre, where the idea of the wet compound is you want it to get it warm, but you've also got to make sure its temperature doesn't get too high, as otherwise what you start to do is burn away the tread blocks and you turn the wet tyre into a slick, which is the last thing you want to do on a wet circuit, albeit I think it's wet enough that they're not going to have to worry about tyre cooling issues, as Benjamin Gregory there gets it slightly wrong at Murray's corner, brings it back on, but he will drop to 1.3 seconds off of the back of Winus, but still a way to go. From him, we'll look to Matthew Sheraton, and well, here's a familiar face for you. Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing, who we ride on board with, looking back over the rear of his car, and he's being chased by Jamie Dory. And right now, the next gen driver, they go very sideways coming out of turn number 3. Sheraton trying to blast away as they make the way down the back straight, and as they do, heading up towards turn number 4 and 5. Well, now for Dory, he's going to look to try to get a bit closer sooner rather than later. Sheraton doesn't have a toe in front of him, but what he does have is quite a length of gap and time over Dory as Dory starts to get closer. Dory bringing Michael at least with him. Sheraton here trying to make the breakaway as Dory very aggressive on entry there into Brundle and Nelson. Very different line, a much tighter line, and gives him a lot of speed through there. So Dory finding a bit more speed in perhaps the trickiest complex of all the corners in these wet conditions, and I think Sheraton will be wary of the fact that he's now just seen a very new line be developed through there, and it might be a line he wants to try next time as going sideways there through Corium Corner. Sheraton fighting every step of the way with Stimwell, as is Dory, albeit Dory letting the car roll out wide and then bringing it back to the corner. Sheraton trying to keep a consistent line with two very different driving styles here, and Jamie Dory right now close, but not close enough to think about a move as Michael Lease falls to 1.3 seconds back, but he's still got a way to go. But down the start finish straight they charge, and as they do, onto another lap. Well, now onto lap number 15, 5 more still on the clock, and as they roar the way to turn 1 this time, well, Dory's close enough to think about a move into turn 1. Side by side they go into Rich's Bend. And is it still going to be Sheraton ahead then, going down towards Wilson Hairpin? And the answer is yes for now. In fact, no, it's not. We can't quite see, but the camera will turn. And in the end, it is going to be Sheraton still holding on to the hairpin, but now having to pitch the car absolutely tight, avoiding the puddle on the inside in order to make sure that Dory can't come on through. Back to the leaders, meanwhile. And as they make the way down the back stretch, well, it's going to be Pike and Delmont here swapping places again. Andrew Pike trying to get back ahead of Delmont into Brundle, and then Nelson. Onto the brakes they go. Delmont trying to hold it outside to inside. Pike still trying to force the issue, but in the end, the only thing that's going to be forced here is this battle is going to force time out of them, albeit when they've got an 8-second gap to Matthew Sheraton in third, they can afford to do this as much as they want, because Sheraton's a long way away, and Adam Delmont returns to the lead of the race as they come through Bomb Hole, but out of right-hander and in towards Coram, and from them, Stuart Brady and Stuart Winus, in fact, Sam Brady and Stuart Winus, I should say, let's get our names right, they're fighting over 5th place for the Pro-Am class, 11th overall, and it's Winus who takes that position back as they head up through Brundle into Nelson, and a brilliant set of 2 wides there. All drivers showing each other plenty of awareness and plenty of racing respect. But from them, let's go a little bit further down the order, and this is Lewis Mason on the back of Callum Murray. He does have Nigel Stott for close company here as we ride aboard, looking over the front of the Crest Autosport number 30. And as he powers his way along in the draft then, indeed the murky mist over the back of Mason's car, will Cal Murray there being passed by Mason. They're going to go too wide up ahead in towards Brundle. Is going to be an opportunity for Stock to get involved? And the answer is not initially, but it will draw him much closer here as they head now to Nelson. As Stock there slides loose coming out of Brundle, but catches the car again. And well, Mason there almost losing it coming out to the corner. A lot of power oversteer there, no grip on those rear tyres. Through the bomb hole they go, out of it, and Kieran Murray just around the outside there, making it look like clockwork. Lovely move from the Next Gen Racing green driver. Through the long right-hander Aquarium they go, and Stock right now close, but not close enough to look for an opportunity as we get a cheeky bit of sunlight coming on through. We just briefly saw that over the bonnet of the car. I don't think that's going to help dry the circuit up at all as Mason tries to force the issue there versus Murray. They both go deep through Murray's bend, and as they make their way onto the power, here comes Nigel Stock. Now watch this. This is going to be an absolute part of the seas here. He's going to go left, he's going to go right, he's going to go through the middle of the two as they roar the way down the start-finish straight, and Nigel Stock sees the path open there and says, I've got to go for it, and well, wonderful opportunism. But is it going to be enough to get him ahead of Murray and Mason into one? And the answer is yes, it will be one and done. Lovely move from Nigel Stock, and that moves him into 7th place in the Prime class, 15th overall as they now head down towards turn number 2. But coming into that braking zone, and as they do, will still more to come here, no doubt about it. As we look back to Adam Delmont, your race leader, well, those guys were just making their way for Rich's Bend, almost a lap down as Callum Murray, I think, has been involved in a bit of an incident at the Montreal hairpin, or Wilson hairpin as it's now known. I think he's had a spin, or he's bringing himself back together as quickly as he can. But from them to Adam Delmont right now, will Delmont still push it onwards here. Lap number 17 and 19, 3 to go. And Pike and Delmont are the closest drivers out there in the top 10. Or better say that. And then Michael Lee says, hold my beer, as he battles side by side with Matthew Sheraton here. They're fighting over 4th place with Lee Horn for close company and Isaac Doble 7 seconds behind, but closing quickly. Or at least that's going to be his target. Into the braking zone, and well, that is going to be Lisa ahead on the outside. But oh, goodness me, it's a big moment for Matthew Sheraton. The car snatches around him, he catches it in time, and well, as he brings it back together, Sheraton's surely got to get that restarted. No, Sheraton's gone completely sideways. It's had to be towed to the pits. Well, I think something broke there in the car for Matthew Sheraton under braking, and with that, for Sheraton, his race is in arrears, and it's in tears with it. So Sheraton falls. We've still got more to come, however, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, on laps 17 and 19, there's 2 more after this one, and everything can potentially happen until it's all over. But it normally does happen all the way over the race distance here, and Delmont and Pike push each other to the absolute limit. Further back, as our cameraman turns around, and I can imagine our cameraman and woman right now absolutely soaked out there, where it's going to be side by side between Smart and Delaney, as Thomas Delaney still fighting for 3rd place in the Pro-Am class, trying to fight for the final spot on the podium. Not quite working out this time as they come out of the Brundle into Nelson complex. Through bomb hole they go, and can we get on board with Delaney? The answer is yes, and really a 555 try. He's been an absolutely fantastic star today, no doubt about it. While the star performances in fighting away through the adversity that he's had in the first 2 races, and enjoying a good battle for the podium in the Prime class here in the final race of the day, as he fights for the steering wheel there, coming into the corner. Smart going absolutely sideways, and Delaney following suit, but he's able to get the power down a bit better. That's a lovely catch there from Thomas Delaney. He will be able to go side by side here as they head up towards the timing line, and as they do, onto the penultimate lap they go. Our leader's already onto it, but will it be Smart? Will it be Delaney leading for Richards Bend? And the answer is it's neither right now. It's neck and neck as they come through the right-hander, but then Smart will cover him off, and Delaney looks to do the switch back here. It's a classic move through Richards Bend. They both go sideways in synchronicity, and Smart runs out onto the grass, and Thomas Delaney takes the place. But with that, we must now come back to the leaders, because now Pike and Delmont, the gloves are off here with 1.5 laps to go as they come down into Brundle and Nelson. Pike gets ahead, but he has to go to the inside into Nelson to cover off Delmont. Does exactly that as they roar the way into bomb hole corner. But Pike right now will not be getting away from Delmont. I think it's going to come down to a mistake between these two. Alternatively, we're going to see it go all the way to the final checkered flag of the day. But from them, looking back to Horn versus Lease, they're still fighting over 4th place. But for Michael Lease, this is just right now enjoying his food and playing with it, because of the fact he's your Prime leader, and he's got a 6-second gap to 2nd place Prime man of Nick Clemens. So you can see here, almost making an excursion wide out of bomb hole corner, but brings it back on. But speaking of bringing things back on, we bring our cameras back onto our race leaders then, as they go for one more lap of the Snetterton 200 circuit. Here we go, one more time then, ladies and gentlemen, in the absolutely treacherous and tricky conditions here that the Norfolk County has been able to deliver. Will it be Delmont or will it be Pike who takes victory? Well, two wide, they're going to Richards Bend, and here comes Delmont then looking around the outside. Pike will cover off the inside down into Wilson Bend. He's been doing this a lot over the last couple of laps. He's just taking those inside lines. Delmont looking all the way around there, goes a bit deep under braking. They come together there, a bit of a rub between the two of them. Two wide, they exit. Delmont has made the move. He's made it stick outside to inside, but the problem is now that Pike is going to have the draft here as they make the way down the back stretch. Pike having to fight with the steering wheel, but here he powers along there as we ride on board with Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective Esports, the 57.5s. It paths, it puts the power down, heading up towards the Brundle Nelson complex then for the final time. Onto the brakes, they get ready to go, and as they do, coming into left, into right here, it's going to be practically door to door, but Delmont is holding onto that inside line. Pike tries to scoot around the outside. They've had a couple of cars off. That Duncan Rise recovering, also Alan McCain recovering, but our leaders right now, they're Stu too wide as they head into bomb hole, but Delmont gets ahead. Pike tries to cut it back, but Indian has to tuck in. Delmont now has track position through Coram Bend. It might be a drag race all the way to the finish. Well, here they come on around, but the one thing that Delmont has is the toe of a back marker as they roar the way through, and that's not going to help Pike out at all as they come through Coram and now into Murray's Bend. One more corner and then a drag race to the line. Pike goes a little bit deep. That might cause it to be going the way of Delmont. Here they go down the start finish straight. The checker flag waves, but who does it wave for first and foremost? Well, I think it's going to go the way of Adam Delmont, ladies and gentlemen, because they head to line. Well, Pike comes along, but it's not enough, and Adam Delmont takes victory over one in pro, head of Andrew Pike by 3/10 at the line. It's then going to be a further 8.5 seconds to Jamie Dorey in third, ahead of Michael Lees, who completes a pro-am victory. Lee Horn is fifth. Then Nick Clemens is your runner-up in pro-am class, ahead of Isaac Doble, who will very shortly make his way to the line in 7th place after fighting with Kieran Smart for the majority of the race distance. Smart will take the 3rd spot on the Prime podium ahead of Thomas Delaney in their fight for 8th and 9th. And it'll be Stuart Winers who completes your top 10 ahead of Sam Bradley, who makes his way home to an 11th place finish. And here he comes. What a race, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt about it. And it'll be Benjamin Gregory who comes on through to finish 12th shortly, as we've got quite a spaced out field here. You'll have to bear with us as they all make the way on around. And as they do, well, Gregory will take in that 12th place spot in the end. A bit of a lonely end to his race, but we'll be happy to have made it to the checker flag, as will Lewis Mason, albeit he's got to get it through the final corner there as he sipes his way across the apex of Murray's Bend. The car at this point, I think he just wants to get out of it, given how challenging it's been all the way over the distance. But here he comes then to take 13th place. What for him is 7th place in the prime class. There's some good points on the board for him. And then we will have Nigel Stock 5.5 seconds behind him, and the Crystal Autosport driver holds off Lewis Delmont to line in the fight for 14th. It'll then be Cal Murray who takes home 16th place here, as he makes his way onwards to the final of the laps he'll take today. And then we will see Matthew Cheverton behind after that error that saw him had to tow to the pits. They got the car back out, and he'll be your last lead lap finisher in 17th. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race here today. And Adam Delmont, as he celebrates there by drifting from side to side and then going around where he didn't go around at any point during the race, he'll be happy with that. And Andrew Pike will be gutted not to have taken victory. But what a battle between the two of them for overall victory in the end, keeping each other honest for what was 17 laps of the 19, pushing each other to the absolute limit. And Jamie Dorey in the end completing that podium in the NXTGEN Racing Machine in the 13. And well, for Jamie Dorey, it was all about fighting for the final spot on the podium and making sure Michael Lees and Lee Horn could not take it. But as all drivers make their way into the pit lane, I think anybody who made it to the checker flag there, they're all winners in terms of surviving these conditions at Snetterton. Well, they're all coming down, they're all celebrating the pit lane. You can understand why, they're all very happy. But let's go to the scenic view and take a look at the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, after an absolutely frightful and fraught race number 3 for round 2 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, powered by Doble Motorcycles, Adam Delmont took victory by 3 attempts at line for NXTGEN Green ahead of the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Andrew Pike. Following their brilliant battle, it was also a great battle for third, with Jamie Dorey completing the overall podium, making an all-pro podium, the first of which for today, ahead of Michael Lees, your prime winner for JWM Motorsports. Lee Horn completed his race in 5th place for NXTGEN Racing. I think gutted to miss out on a podium, but he'll be happy with that 5th place all the same. Nick Clemens, a runner-up in the prime class, 6th overall for iRacing Esports, a solid drive there from the Briton. And then we'll see Isaac Doble in 7th for Double Sim Racing, ahead of your 3rd place prime finisher, Kieran Smart, who was 8th for Track Scotland. Thomas Delaney fought hard with Smart, but in the end couldn't quite secure his first podium of the season, had to settle for 9th or 4th in class, but behind the SVR Motorsport Privateer, it was Stuart Winnes who completed your top 10. The Track Scotland drivers then followed up by best of the rest, NXTGEN Green's Sam Bradley in 11th, and Benjamin Gregory taking the 12th place, finishing in for Full Tilby Motorsport. Well, a bit of a frustrating race there, but he'll be happy to see the checker flag. Lewis Mason was 13th for Aztec Racing, ahead of Nigel Stock and Lewis Delmont, with the Crest Autosport driver just out-edging the NXTGEN Green driver to the line. And then in 16th place, it was NXTGEN Green driver Callum Murray, ahead of Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing, who was your last lead lap finisher, albeit with that damage he picked up under the heavy braking into turn number 2 in the closing laps. He'll be gutted to have missed out on a podium opportunity. Alan McCain was your first driver to finish a lap down, and Duncan Rice followed him in 19th. And then we did have the retirees, unfortunately, of Phil McDougall, who finished 20th, but we classified as a non-finisher, and also non-finishers for Ian Manners, Ben Altria, Matthew Williams, and Sam Smith. And I believe that was our whole field, ladies and gentlemen. So 24 starters, and in the end, a grand total of 19 finishers, of which 17 on the lead lap. And that brings to a close all of our racing here today at the Snetterton 200 circuit. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you one thing. Absolutely horrendous conditions, but what a show our drivers put on in race number 3, and really encapsulating the phenomenal racing spirit of our drivers in these Legends Coupes. But whilst our racing may have come to a close here, this broadcast hasn't come to a close, because shortly, in less than 10 minutes' time, we'll be back for post-round interviews with a selection of our drivers. Don't go anywhere, you won't to miss them. We will see you very shortly for those post-round interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we're going to be hearing from two of our pros, of whom absolutely had a brilliant duel all the way to the finish line in our final race of the day. And we'll be hearing firstly from the man who was the runner-up in that duel, Sim Racing Collective Esports' Andrew Pike. And then we'll be coming to the man who took back-to-back victories plus pole position today in qualifying, Adam Delmont, the one who came out on top in that duel in race number 3. We're also going to be hearing from a prime driver in the form of Stuart Winus of Track Scotland, and his story about three top 5 finishes in the Pram class, including that brilliant drive to the runner-up spot in race number 1 of the day. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get Andrew Pike in here. And well, good evening to you, Andrew. And how close were you to taking victory in race number 3? I mean, you had brilliant races up and down the field today, but I can imagine that race number 3 must have been your absolute highlight in the trickiest conditions we can put these legends through. And it was nip and tuck between yourself and Adam for the entirety of 17, if not more, laps.
Oh, it was unbelievable, wasn't it, that one? I don't know if you looked at onboards at any point, but the conditions from the cockpit view were absolutely horrific. Fuming that Adams beat me there, to be honest. He's driven really well, and if I could have just got the nose in on that last corner, I probably would have been able to drag him to the line, but it's so tricky getting these things squared up and out the other side. He drove really well. It was a fantastic race. At no point did I feel like I was going to get put in the fence. There was a little bit of nudging and door rubbing, but that's what we all like, isn't it? I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, 100%. It was absolutely fantastic. And like you say, little nudges, little taps here and there, but nothing beyond that. Absolutely fair, which is what we want to see in the Legends machines. And you two making legends of each other in your own right. But winding the tape all the way back to the start of the day, Snetterton 200 circuit, easy enough in the dry perhaps, more challenging in the wet, but in qualifying, a relatively dry session, 10th place on the grid. How was qualifying for you?
I got mugged off all night, to be fair. Every time I got behind somebody for a tow, they would spin off or they would pit for tyres. I don't think I'd have been an awful lot further forward, but I didn't get a tow all session, which is how it goes, really. I tried to find one, didn't really get any luck with it. And then once you find yourself sort of in and around 10th, you've got to be really careful, T1, T2. But luckily everybody around me was as well. A lot more careful than perhaps the TCR last week, should we say. It's not ideal to start sort of in the pack. It's always a risk, but I did what I could with no tow, like I say, and just held on for the rain. I knew it was going to rain, and much like you've probably seen with the TCRs in the past, I do like the wet weather. It tends to suit me.
Oh, 100%. You are one of our kings of changeable conditions. And in race number 1, we saw you pick your way all the way through to a 5th place finish in the end. Although part of me imagines that perhaps you were hoping for the rain to come just a lap earlier, given it crept in on the final lap. But I think you could have made a bit more progress if it had come one lap before.
Potentially. It's quite difficult on the slick. It did rain quite hard there at the end. But maybe, yeah, it depends how brave I was. I think later on in the night, then absolutely, but that early on, I probably would have been relatively careful. It would have depended on what happened ahead of me. But yeah, I mean, any sort of changeable conditions like that level the field, don't they? So I always welcome them personally.
Well, welcome conditions, and in race number 2, we saw the top 15 inversion, and we saw you start on the dry tyre. Unfortunately, it didn't stay dry long enough, although the pace was coming, and then suddenly the clouds came back over, and we saw you jump to the pits. I can imagine at that point you're sort of, you know what, this just has not been my gamble.
Absolutely that, yeah. I mean, I don't think any of us know much about the difference between the dry and the wet tyre on these. It's not really a slick, it's a cut slick. So I was kind of hoping in other cars you see substantial gains on the straights, especially with less rolling resistance on a slick. That didn't work, so the tyre wasn't fast enough early enough, and then, as you say, it bucketed down, which I could see on the radar, but I was thinking, well, if the dry comes to life and I can cut through and build a gap, then I might be able to survive, but it didn't go my way. Having said that, I went into the pit lane thinking I'm going to be dead last, and I still came out in 17th, I think, which meant that I at least didn't take too big a points hit for getting that wrong. But yeah, I absolutely got that wrong.
Well, it may not have been the right call to start on the slick tyre for race number 2, but still a gamble that sometimes you've got to take. It doesn't always work out. However, it gave you a good starting position for race number 3, And in the early stage, at least, we saw you come through the field very quickly. And I get the feeling your plan was to try and just run off into the distance. But there's a pack of Pro-Ams in front of you, and also some pros that didn't want to let that happen before Adam Delmont arrived.
Yeah, I was having a great scrap with Lee. Lee drove really well. It was a shame that he got... I braked a little bit earlier to T1 and it kind of caught him out, I think, and he bumped into the back of me and off he went. But that was a shame. I did exactly plan to break the toe. If I could have broke the toe, I did get sort of just over a second from Lee, and I thought I had a chance there. But it's just so tricky to hang on to that car. You push just a little bit too hard mid-corner, or just a little bit too much throttle too early, and you've probably seen on the broadcast the things are sideways and struggling to get up and out of the corners, and I didn't manage to get away. So I guess I paid the price there at the end when Del did catch us and eventually got me. But as you said at the top there, it's that was some battle, definitely.
Now, with that battle, of course, one of the highlights of the evening, I mean, firstly, we saw wet conditions in races 1 and 2 to different degrees, but race number 3, I mean, it was just a flooded circuit. Did that make positioning the car difficult? Because, of course, there's an actual dry line to any circuit, including the Snetterton 200. There's puddles forming, but in these conditions, it's almost as if you've got to try and find the smallest of the puddles because there's water everywhere.
Yes, definitely, and also the rubber. I think the rubbering of the track must carry over between these sessions. I didn't look beforehand, but you certainly braking anywhere near the racing line was pretty tricky. And as you cross over the rubbered sections of the corners and some of the exits, that was causing a lot of the sliding and wheel spinning that you see. So yeah, it is a question of who can find the best line around. Which causes a fairly big divide sometimes in the field. But when you do get people that are kind of on the same page, then you end up with what we've had there in the third one. And like I say, I've never been less annoyed to be beaten. If I'm honest, that was that much fun. I can deal with that. It was a good race.
Oh, fantastic. Well, glad to hear you enjoyed that race and enjoyed all the action today. And, of course, this has just been round number 2 of 9 rounds. I mean, there's plenty more to come. And in 2 weeks' time, we make our way to Scotland for Knockhill International. How are you feeling to a trip to Scotland?
Well, these should be mega around there, shouldn't they? If it's wet, then I would suggest it would be arguably more difficult than what we've just gone through with some of the curbs that you kind of have to run at Knockhill. But this league is so much fun. It's a little bit less stress on it than the touring cars from my point of view, at least. So I'm sure it'll be a hoot, however it turns out. To be honest, it's brilliant.
Oh, well, I definitely agree with you there. We look forward to seeing you romp and rave your way around the Scottish circuit in a couple of weeks' time. But just before we do let you go, Andrew, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, thankful you guys for putting this on. I realise, as a community we run leagues and things, so I realise how much work goes into running this as well as you do, and it's there's a reason people keep turning up, isn't there? So appreciate your efforts as always.
Well, Andrew, we appreciate having you on the grid week in, week out, whether it be NXTCC or in the Legends. I mean, you've been an absolutely brilliant driver tonight, no doubt about it. It's a shame things didn't quite work out in race number 2, perhaps the way you wanted them to, but still, results to be remembered, and especially that final race battle between yourself and Adam Delmont. We look forward to plenty more at Knockhill in 2 weeks' time, but until then, thank you for joining me in the interview room and have a great rest of your evening.
You too, mate. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Pike saying there this is a runner-up spot that he's never been more... Well, not exactly his words, but essentially it's to the point of he's never been more happy to be runner-up with an incredible battle between himself and Adam Delmont, and not disappointed in the fact it didn't go his way, with the two of them side by side throughout the entirety of the race-free distance. Also mentioned there the fact that given how wet the circuit is, it's all about finding the right place of the circuit for the least amount of standing water. Where there's water everywhere, it really is about trying to figure out how you can get the power down and point the car in a straight line and blast away, and in the end just missing out and thinking that perhaps if things had worked out differently into the final corner, he might have had a chance, but still there'll be plenty more opportunities later on this season for him to go toe-to-toe with Adam Delmont and many of our other race-leading drivers as they continue to make their way around the United Kingdom. Also mentioned there that he's looking forward to Knock Hill International, and if the weather conditions are dry, these things should absolutely fly around there, but if it's wet, it may be even more treacherous than here today. But talking all the way through as well, the fact that whilst he didn't expect to qualify too much further than 10th, even if things have gone perfectly in qualifying in the races, that's where it mattered. And well, despite the misfortune of strategy not playing out in race number 2, enjoying a great set of performances all the way through and loving the racing every step of the way. Well, that brings our first interview to a close, ladies and gentlemen, but we've still got 2 more to come. And next up is going to be none other than Adam Delmont, who gets ready to join me in the interview room. And well, let's hear from the man who was the other side of the coin in that battle for victory in race number 3. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, joining me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Adam. And well, what a day for yourself. Back-to-back victories in races 2 and 3, a pole position in qualifying. But on top of all of it, a race-free victory earned after 17 or so laps of brilliant battling between yourself and Andrew Pine. I mean, we just heard from Andrew say he couldn't be more happy, effectively, to be second to you in such a battle like that. I mean, from your perspective, how was that?
Oh, Paul. Well, firstly, hello. Yeah, mate, that was... Yeah, right up there with some of the top races that I've had on iRacing. I mean, it was just so intense. You can't really actually put it properly into words when it's like that, because you're holding on for dear life. Your tyres are getting a bit destroyed because it's not raining anymore. The tyres are getting hot, they're getting used. You've just got the draft, and yeah, that was just holding on for dear life at the end, I think.
Well, in terms of hold on for dear life, if we roll things back, I think many moments today for yourself and many drivers could be described as holding on for dear life. Qualifying, firstly, most of the qualifying session dominated by Isaac Doble. And then suddenly, midway through, you put yourself on pole and it's back and forth between the two of you. And then out of nowhere, right at the end, you suddenly spring up to the top. And it's not just by, say, 100th or 2, it's by the best part of a couple of attempts. How was qualifying for you?
It was all right, mate. It took me a little while to get, behind somebody that I could pick up a bit of draft. So my initial qualifying laps were all done on my own. And I think I timed it well. And I got behind, funnily enough, Jamie and Isaac on that last lap. And the thing on the back straight, I actually had to do multiple lifts because I didn't want to compromise Isaac's lap, who was right in front of me. So I had to lift out of it a little bit and just tried to match him as close as I could. I was still up on my time, so I knew it was a good time, but there was definitely a good more 2-3 tenths in that lap if the seas had parted for me at the right time and I'd have gone through the chicane. But yeah, no, felt good, mate. Felt good last night in practice. As much as it is hard work, they are actually fun when it's a little bit damp and stuff. So yeah, just put it together and managed to squeak it at the end. Yeah, put me in best position for race 1.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of race number 1, I mean, you might have started on pole, but by the end of it, it went a little bit backwards, albeit I think that was just as much being in the pack and all the fighting as it was about who you were fighting. I mean, everyone wanted their elbows out and everyone wanted to prove the point you may have been the pole sitter, but you're not going to be the race winner.
Yeah, I let my frustrations get to me a little bit in race 1 because obviously we were all kind of fighting together and it was quite early in the race, and I think Matthew was on a bit of a full send thing for a couple of laps, and at the start of a race like that, I tend to find working with each other. I could see the front two working together and pushing each other, which ideally is what you really want to do to start the race, especially in these kind of conditions. And because it was a bit sendy, it was just allowing them to break away, and I got a little frustrated and took I turned a bit too early, trying to fight, and clipped the curb, which spun me round and dropped me to 6th. But the pace were there. It was just a little bit of frustration from wanting to do the fighting with the top lot, not settling for 3rd or 4th fight, and back. So yeah, I was a little frustrated with that, but overall it was still a really good race. So I mean, I enjoyed the thing is, I actually really enjoyed the battle with Matthew. It was just frustrating because I could see what we should be doing.
Oh, it's
But,
completely
it happened.
Oh, true. It's completely understandable where, like you say, in those situations where you know you should be challenging for the win and you're having a great scrap, but it's for third, it's not the win. But turning things around there in race number 2, we saw you back on true Delmont form in race 2, charging your way towards the front of the field and not letting go.
Yeah, I after race 1, reevaluated myself a little bit, like, just what you getting yourself annoyed for. It was still a good race, so, and then just got it back together for race 2, mate, and worked through nicely and took risks when I needed to. And there's a few corners where people just didn't quite catch on to how much grip there was offline, and I just exploited it throughout the second races, and managed to get through and get up front, and then just bring it home.
Oh, an absolutely solid job to bring home your first win of the day there. And it wasn't over yet, because in race number 3, of course, starting from the very back of the field, minus 2 drivers who DNF'd from race number 2, so you started 23rd, but very quickly found yourself all the way out towards the front of the field, and then subsequently fighting with Andrew Pike and Lee Horn, albeit before that. Talk us a little bit about the conditions there, because driving just in these conditions, a nightmare. Picking your way through the best part of another 20 drivers before you join that lead battle. I mean, how'd you do it?
Do you know what? This car, especially in the wet, very much reminds me of when I used to do a lot of the karting, especially like the big enduros, and we always used to run on slicks no matter the weather. So if it was absolutely siling it down, we'd be on slicks. This car seems to handle very similar when it's really, really wet like that. And I don't know, race 3 was so enjoyable, mate. From back of the grid, I just, I did some crazy sends that worked and nice and clean. I got through cleanly, and before I knew it, I could see the top couple of drives, and I'm like, ooh, I can catch on to these. For a couple of laps, I could see Lee pushing Andy for all his worth down the straight, so making it a little harder for me to catch up. But I think I got to about 1.3, 1.2 off him, and I think Lee realised at that point that I was already there. Then I'm well and truly in the draft, so he aborted, tried to help Andy, and tried to think, right, I know what he was doing, and he thought, I need to get in front of Andy now and use Andy as a bit of a buffer because Delmont's on his way. But that slowed him up even more into turn 1, which allowed me to get with him a little bit quicker. And then obviously, I think Lee made a small mistake, and I think he had an off. And then that final battle with Andrew was just right. That was top draw, that, mate. That were right up there. The concentration that had to go into that was unreal.
Oh, 100%. I mean, from that perspective, the two of you fighting for so long, I mean, at certain points you're ahead, certain points you're behind, and practically every different corner you found a way to go too wide at some points, where there's certain bits you were perhaps observing over the distance and realising, you know what, come the final lap, this is where I want to be, or this is where I want to be going into this corner to make sure I win, or was it just, you know what, see where I am on the final corner and on the final lap?
No, do you know what? I was quite comfortable in front, mate. I was getting the good drives out of where I needed to, and there was a couple of corners that as long as I stuck to my line and held my line, even if Andrew got a sniff up the inside, I knew that I had the grip. So the corner at the end of the back straight, the left into the tight right, I was able to outbrake on the outside there anybody that tried to go for the inside and carry it round, which then gave me the inside for the next corner, and I was comfortable with that, mate. So I was quite happy. But Andy, after a couple of sniffs, he cottoned on to what I was doing, and he managed to get me offline and switched it and did a really, really nice move and got me. I think it might have been 2 laps before the end, and he got me. So I just reevaluated, and for all my worth, I was trying to get back over on the right, on the back straight, and I think I managed to do it. And we went side by side, and then it was just holding on, and then just praying for the checkered flag, right, to be honest.
Well, your prayers were definitely answered and making it back-to-back victories and an absolutely brilliant job in doing so. And well, you come away from Snetterton with a huge haul of points, and in 2 weeks' time, we do it all again at Knockhill International. How are you feeling for the trip to Scotland in round 3?
Oh, I can't wait, Paul. I love Knockhill. I'm always usually pretty quick around Knockhill in pretty much anything I've gone round there in. It's just one of those tracks. I was quick at Knockhill on R Factor 2 back in the day as well. It's just one of those tracks that I just seem to always go well round. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. The Legend, I've got very, very minimal driving experience in this car. I did a little bit of the last season, when Jamie did that short one. I joined with Sam. I think we may have been about halfway through the season when we joined, and that's really the only experience of this car I've had. But by the end of that season, I'd started tweaking on to the characteristics and what it wants from you. And yeah, I think for some strange reason I've remembered it and come into this one straight off the bat with a bit of pace. So, as much as the TCR is the main creme de la creme, this I look at as a bit more just of a bit of an unwind, a bit of fun, but still, you want to be respectful, you want really good races, you want the best of what you can get, but I'm not that concerned about points in this one. But the way it's going, I could end up there fighting against, Isaac, because Isaac's been pretty dominant in Legend and stuff, so, especially last season, he was really quick, and he's still really quick now, so, yeah, it's nice to be up there from the get-go this time.
Oh, 100%. We love to see you right up there fighting for the best spoils right from the get-go, like you say. And we look forward to plenty more in 2 weeks' time at Knockhill. But Adam, just before I do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, as always, mate, big thank you to you for the broadcasts. Always, really thoroughly enjoy watching them back. Jamie and Martin and all the admins, Gaz and Mark for everything they do. NXTGEN Green, all our sponsors, the lads. Sam's had a really good night, Lewis has had a good night barring a few mistakes. Cal had a good night, couple of mistakes or, unavoidable situations for him, unfortunately. And a shout out to Mark, who watched last week and gave us a shout out in stream, and I'd not seen it till after, so I'll give him his shout out now.
Oh, fair play. Well, glad to hear you and all the guys at NXTGEN Green have had a good evening of racing, Adam, and none more so than yourself. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations on your back-to-back victories in races 2 and 3. We look forward to plenty more in Scotland in round number 3. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
And you, Paul, mate. Good night, dude.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from the pro driver, the number 37, Adam Delmont. And what a day today. Absolutely loving each and every lap around here. We're really getting to grips with the Legends machine sooner rather than later, and openly admitting he hasn't got that much experience with the machine compared to the likes of the TCRs, but he's enjoying it all the way through and enjoying not just the run of the car, but also the circuit and all the action. And saying in qualifying, in the end, he found the lap, he found the total, and was able to get things done. And that's where he's able to propel himself to pole position. In race number 1, that bittersweet moment, enjoying a great battle with Matthew Cheverton. But the problem is the battle was embroiled with third place, and it meant the two pro-ams of Nick Clemens and Stuart Winus, who we'll be hearing from shortly, were able to creep off and take the lead away from Adam Delmont and his rival. So in the end, they were relegated to fighting for the final spot on the podium, which is not what he wanted. And with some frustration building, he made a small mistake, spanned the car at Wilson hairpin, and that was why he finished 6th. However, he reset going into race number 2 with a top 15 reverse grid, charged his way through, took the lead, and didn't look back. And in race number 3, well, coming off of the high of race number 2, he decided to pick his way through the field, get to grips with the conditions quickly, and made his way all the way into that lead battle between himself, Lee Horn, and Andrew Pike. And with Horn having that small moment where he tapped the rear of Pike's car and went around, it was then the two of them. And what followed was an absolutely legendary battle between the two, which will go down in the history books of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup for the simple reason, the best part of 10 plus laps, the two absolutely locked together, and neither driver making an error there and absolutely doing everything. And even Adam admitting he tried to condition, he tried to get Andrew to drive a particular way, but then Andrew became wise to it and made him look another way, look for an alternative approach. But then it all came down to fine margins and both the drivers playing a game of wit at an average speed of 70 plus miles an hour over the entirety of the lap. And well, either one would have come away a deserved winner, but for Adam Delmont, it's a second win today that propels his championship campaign forward and means when he goes to Knock Hill, he's going to be one of the big boys to watch out for. We're now going on to our final interview of the day. We've heard from our two pro drivers, but I think it's time for us to hear from a pro-am driver. And it is going to be the turn of Stuart Winers, who gets ready to join us here in the interview room. And we're going to hear the story of the man who brought home that absolutely brilliant second place in race number 1 of the day, not just in class, but also overall. And what I do believe he joins me now, and he does indeed. Good evening to you, Stuart. And well, what a round of racing for yourself. 3 top 5s in the Pro-Am class, a second place on the podium in race number 1, not just in class, but overall, and a solid night from yourself on the whole, to be fair, in some rather treacherous conditions. How have you left Snetterton feeling?
Yeah, good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody else. Yeah, first race, somehow got to the front and stayed with Nick through most of the race, so it was quite handy. I just went a wee bit too early on the overtake for the lead. I should have waited maybe to the back straight and had the run down to Nelson's, but I picked the place, but I was like, okay, I'll just settle for second. And yeah, the next two were a bit treacherous, a wee bit. Car was quite lively and a couple of little spins and a little bit of contact with other folk, but you can't beat these little cars racing around here. Like, you're just on the go all the time.
Oh, most definitely. Like you say, you are on the go all the way through. And speaking of going places, I mean, in qualifying, we saw you improve quite early on in the session and then put in some late improvements to finish 7th in qualifying, 2nd in class. It looked so qualifying out there as the circuit dried. You suddenly found a lot of time.
Yeah, I kind of picked the wrong tire to go out with at the start and then went onto the slick. And then I found myself just in my own little world. And every so often you could pick a little bit more time here and there, just keeping the time coming. And near the end, yeah, I kind of got a toe off a few folk, and I was like, that's me, I'll be fine with that. And yeah, and then the last lap I was actually up, and then I made a mistake into the last corner at Nelson's, Murray's, sorry, and I was like, oh well, I'll just come to the pits. There's no point going any further if I've not gained any time. So,
well, absolutely fair. A mistake that might have deprived you of a better qualifying position, but regardless, on the full throw of the grid is where you started for race 1, and you very quickly carved your way through. And I mean, what must it have felt like for yourself? Try to explain it for us, because you were right in the thick of a pack of 8 cars fighting for lead, and then suddenly yourself and Nick, as in Nick Clewins, you just find yourselves drifting off into the distance. I mean, we don't normally have 2 prams sort of go, by the way, guys, we're checking out right now. We're going to go win this race. You can all fight over 3rd.
yeah, and that's the thing with the Legends. If 2 of you can work together, you will pull away from the rest. And when I noticed it was just me and Nick, and we'd had a gap, I think it was to Matthew behind us, I was like, I'm just going to push Nick down the straights and just work our way down and just try and pull a gap. And then if we've got enough of a gap later on, I'll try and make a move and see if we can win the race. But no, it was just to work together and just try and push ourselves further away.
Well, working together, it worked out for you. And as you mentioned earlier, the fact you chose the wrong time to attack towards the end of the race to try and go for the win. I mean, you must have been gutted about it, but flip side of the coin was 2 more races afterwards and plenty of experience to take into those races.
Yes, 100%. I just a wee bit too anxious to get past and I thought if I could, I think I came out of the Wilson's hairpin with like 2 or 3 tenths. I thought I'll try and weave down the straight, but not too much. I just went to the side and Nick just drove past me down the back straight. I was like, oh well, I'll just have to settle for that and maybe try and pick him up somewhere else before the end of the lap, but also didn't. But yeah, it's all a learning curve in these cars.
Well, all learning curves and all learning experiences. So race number 2 looked as though it was a bit of a challenging race in the fact that you started 14th on the grid, made a bit of progress, but in the end had to settle for 10th or a 5th place in class.
Yeah, if I think right, I think I made a good start in tried to settle in, and then I kept making mistakes. I think I spun myself, and I was just like, oh, I kept gaining a position or two and then dropping back again. I was like, just getting annoyed with myself. I was like, oh my god, just can't get further forward. And chat with Kieran, he's like, well, at least you just get on with it. And I was like, I'm trying to, I just can't get any further forward.
Oh dear, we're not able to make progress in race number 2. I have to ask as well, did the changeable conditions in race 2 affect that? Because we saw it start off a bit wet, the circuit dried, and then suddenly the rain came back in quite late on to suddenly take away all the grip that was available.
Yes and no. I kind of enjoyed when it actually got slightly wetter because I could actually maybe start picking up a few more folk that were struggling in it, and I was actually getting a bit more improvement and getting past them. So at least I gained positions back there. But yeah, it was tricky when the rain started to fall at the end. Tires were just maybe a wee bit past it.
Well, may have been tricky towards the end of race number 2, but going from our 15-minute length race to our 25-minute length race, I mean, the heavens had opened up for race number 3. And I mean, what was it like just going out onto the circuit before we even consider racing? Because I can imagine many drivers were thinking, you know what, these conditions are not safe to race in. But for yourself, I mean, were you sort of bring on the challenge, or was it, oh God, here we go?
It's a bit of a bring on the challenge, but then you soon realise these cars have not got no wipers, so you can't clear the screen, you can't really see in the spray. And also there's no, as I noticed in it, there's actually no rain light on it. So even in the spray, you can't see the back of somebody's kind of wee bit of Morse code to try and find some folk. But yeah, it's just then you should slow down and catch folk again. So it's not too bad.
Oh, absolutely fair. And, well, it looked as though over that entire race distance, I mean, everyone was making small mistakes here, there, and everywhere, and going on the grass seemed to be absolutely lethal. But in all of it, you managed to find your way through to a 10th place finish, 5th in class. I mean, were you happy with that, or do you feel as though some places got out of your grasp? Because you had a brilliant... had a brilliant scrap at one point with Sam Bradley. Also, Thomas Delaney came through as well. There were battles everywhere.
Yeah, that was it. There was kind of contact between me and Sam Smith on lap 1. So put me right to the back of the field and tried to fight my way back through. But yeah, found some battles and it made the race a bit more enjoyable. And but yeah, it's just so tricky if you just a bit too heavy-footed. You'll light up the rears and it can launch any direction it wants to go into. So you've got to be so slow and gentle with the pedal, like to get off the corners. But yeah, it's so much fun, these cars in the wet.
Oh, it looks like you're having a lot of fun out there. And whilst that brings this chapter of the championship to a close, in 2 weeks' time, we make our way to your home circuit, Knockhill International. How are you feeling for a visit to the Highland Circuit?
Just, we would say it's the back door in the back garden, but it's not. It's quite far away from us. But yeah, home track in Scotland, and yeah, we'll try and get some laps done and see how we feel. Me and Kieran see how we feel in the Legends around Knockhill, but hopefully we're up at the front fighting up there, like.
Well, we'd definitely love to see it, because the last time Track Scotland went to the Knockhill circuit, if my memory serves me correctly, you both had an absolutely brilliant time in the NXTCC. And, well, it'd be great to see you fly the banner high for Scotland once again. But that's 2 weeks from now. Before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just you guys putting on a great stream and a great league. And just obviously the Track Scotland fans who are probably watching as well tonight, so all good fun.
Well, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room, and well done on your trio of results. Understandably, the podium finishes crept away from you a little bit in races 2 and 3, but still plenty of battles out there, like you say, and a brilliant drive to not just second in class, but second overall in race number 1. I mean, it definitely shows that you're a force to be reckoned with in the Pro-Am class, and we look forward to plenty more at Knockhill in round number 3. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, and thank you once again.
Cheers, thank you, Paul. See you later, guys.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Track Scotland's Stuart Winus in the Pro-Am class, enjoying himself out there, no doubt about it. But very interesting perspective as well, in the fact, talking about the fact everywhere he looked in all 3 races, plenty of battles out there, albeit things didn't quite work out in each of the races, particularly races 2 and 3, as we do see that moment he was referring to earlier from race number 3, the moment into the barrier there after slipping wide out of turn 3, taking to a slight bit of tarmac where the corner of Oggies would make its way into the Bentley straight, and that unsettling the car as he then returned to the grass and went to the barrier. However, also celebrating the positives. Qualifying, putting it together, albeit was on the wrong tyre at the start of qualifying, was on the wet, went to the dry, and everything suddenly clicked together. And from that, things started to click together in race number 1, albeit a little bit surprised that he and Nick Clemens were able to just pull away in terms of the lead battle of race number 1. But mentioning that's what happens when you find somebody to work together in these Legends machines. You do just pull away over time and making it count. In race number 2, an early incident pulling him back down the order and wasn't able to make as much progress as he wanted. And in fact, then once he started to make progress, he ended up being locked into battles and saying there the frustration of, I've got the pace, but I'm just not moving forward enough. And in race number 3, I think feeling the same, albeit with the treacherous conditions, which he wanted the challenge of and enjoyed the challenge. We made his way all the way through to a 10th place finish and 5th place in class again. So some good points on the board, but going to Knock Hill wanting even more, and well, a home circuit as well. That means there's always just that little bit more pressure to put some pride on the line. I'm sure the Track Scotland pair of Stuart Winess and Kieran Smart will do their country justice, and we look forward to seeing it out there, none more so than our number 61 driver. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close, and we've just heard there from Stuart Winess in the Pram class of Track Scotland. Before the number 61 drive, we heard from our 2 big players in race number 3 of the day, the top 2 of that race. The double winner from state, Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green in the Pro class in the 37 driver, and before him was the number 57 driver, Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. Thank you to all 3 of our drivers for their interviews this evening. A real pleasure to have them all join us. And also a big thank you to them for their brilliant performances out on circuit. And well done to them. And we look forward to plenty more in 2 weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the NXTGEN racing community, perhaps you've been tuning in thinking, you know what, I want to be on the grid for this in a future round. Well, for all that and more, we do recommend you head to our official website, and that website being none other than nextgenracing.co.uk, and that website appears on screen now, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and well, there's never been a better time to be on the grid at NXTGEN Racing. And on our website, you'll find out all the latest information regarding our ongoing and upcoming series, plus also how you can join our official Discord community, which is the beating heart of NXTGEN Racing when it comes to all racing organisation, and also being part of the chat with drivers, staff members, and also the admins. But if you don't want to join the Discord, or perhaps you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, well, we've got you covered as well, because of course you can join our official Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, where you can find out a little bit more about the guys and girls who make up the NXTGEN Racing staff and admin team, including what they do not just on the virtual circuit, but also on the real life circuit, where a number of our admin members, not just being staff members for NXTGEN Racing, but also being real life racing drivers, if not real life marshals or racing directors. But we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, PowerMaxed, Next Level Racing, Mark Sykes Designs, Joyce Design, Douglas Motorsport, Sam Cases UK, Falconer PC Builds and Support, Benji Sim Photos, and of course, last but by no means least, our title sponsor for this season, and that is Doble Motorcycles. And if you are looking to secure the power of dreams when it comes to a machine on 2 wheels or an ATV on 4 wheels, we'll look no further than doble.co.uk, where you can find out all the latest information about how you can get your hands on your latest power of dreams 2-wheel machine, indeed from the family-run business, which puts family and customer pride above all else, and the customer service being their number one thing that puts them in pole position to be one of the best, if not the best, Honda motorcycle dealers in the United Kingdom. And that web address again, of course, doble.co.uk. Be sure to visit it today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring this chapter of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3 to a close. That was Chapter 2, or round number 2. We've still got plenty more rounds to come. And in 2 weeks' time, on Tuesday the 10th of June 2025, it is going to be the question of Scotland the Brave, and who will be the bravest as they make the way to the Knock Hill Racing Circuit. It's going to be short, it's going to be sweet, it's going to be perhaps full of elevation changes and highly raised curbs, but who will brave the elements, and who will brave the treacherous elevation change to the Knock Hill to come out on top? Well, it's all to play for across both of our classes, because Isaac Doyle may have been leading coming into tonight, but his lead will have been shaken coming out of Snetterton. And in the Pro-Am class, it's anybody's guess who'll be leading today, and we're going to leave that to our points talliers going into round number 3. To see how the story continues continues in 2 weeks' time for round 3 of the championship. Tune in then. But until then, we've been the Next Gen Racing Legends Cup. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, that's all from us here at Next Gen Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all.